Chapter 1342. The next part of the plan won't be all bark and no bite again, right? GMO didn't really trust him. You said that you put in so much effort to arrange for so many people, as if the people guarding this passageway were all low-grade supreme martial artists. But in the end, they were all easily found by our brothers. You wasted so much effort. What a loss. Mo Tianji snorted coldly. Loss? Let me tell you, it's already good enough that we could come up. Do you think that those corpses in the passageway are all ordinary people? Do you think that most of the people who died at the entrance before we came up could be defeated by you with one hand? He snorted and said, that's because someone cleared the path for us before we came up. And this person is very powerful. We don't know who this person is, but he's definitely on our side. That's for sure. If this person didn't clear the path first. Mo Tianji sneered. Let me tell you, even if all of us fought with our lives on the line and had 10,000 kilograms of explosives, we might not be able to clear a path. GMO shrank his neck and didn't say anything. During this period of time, he also realized that he had undoubtedly become Mo Tianji's main target. As long as he opened his mouth, there would be a storm waiting for him. But Tianji's plan is really good. He predicted that this path would be illuminated by the purple myrtle. With the help of a benefactor, there really is one. Xie Danxiong said. Luo Kudi muttered, there are only 2,000 kilograms of explosives in the coffin. Where did the 10,000 kilograms come from? Mo Tianji coldly said, don't tell me that you need to know every trump card that I plan? Who do you think you are? Luo Kudi shrank his head. This master of calculation and manipulation was sick. Don't mess with him first, lest you get into trouble. Gu Duxing laughed. Before boss left, he gave me and Tianji 3 rings to store some things. You all know this. Now, the things we need are in one of the rings on my finger. The other 2 rings are on Tianji's finger. There's nothing else in them, only explosives. Tianji said 10,000 kilograms. But according to my estimation, it's definitely more than that. There should be at least 20,000 kilograms. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They looked at Mo Tianji as if they were looking at a monster. No wonder this guy had been caressing those 2 rings along the way. It turned out that there were 20,000 kilograms of explosives inside. Thinking about it this way, everyone felt their blood run cold. Mo Tianji is carrying 20,000 kilograms of explosives in the team without anyone knowing about it. Wouldn't everyone be blown to the sky if something were to happen? GMO and Luo Kudi looked at Mo Tianji with reverence in their eyes. Moms, if these 20,000 kilograms of explosives were on me, would I be able to remain as calm as Mo Tianji? Thinking of this, he was immediately convinced. After all, explosives were not obedient. Whenever there was a strong collision, they would explode on their own. This time, Tianji prepared countless plans, but he did not mention the worst plan. Gu Duxing said indifferently, the worst-case scenario is that we can't beat them and have no choice but to escape. Therefore, I was appointed to ignite the explosives in the coffin and then bring all of you to escape. Tianji brought up the rear and detonated the 20,000 kilograms of explosives. No matter what, we will be able to escape. But Tianji himself may not be able to do anything. Everyone recalled the argument between Gu Duxing and Mo Tianji before they set off. They immediately understood. So this is what they were fighting over. In an instant, an indescribable feeling welled up in everyone's heart. GMO and Luo Kudi, who usually did not get along with Mo Tianji, looked ashamed. Let's not talk about this. Mo Tianji smiled and said, since we are here, then listen to my arrangements. There is a great whetstone waiting for us in the upper 3 heavens. We are not here to chat. He raised his head and looked ahead. This is the territory of the Lan clan. According to the interrogation, a few hundred miles ahead is Tianlan City. That's why our first stop is that place. Tianlan City is the headquarters of the Lan clan. In the entire heavens, it is also one of the places where information travels the fastest and the fastest. So, the next step is for us to split up and collect all the relevant information about the situation in the heavens during this period. The target is the Lan clan. Mo Tianji said solemnly, you all heard about the interrogation last time? The Lan clan actually wants to deal with the woman of the Tribulation Sword Master. Since they know about this, then they have a reason to die. Everyone bring purple crystals with you. If there is a place to buy or sell information, buy it immediately. Save time. 2 days later we will gather at Wanli restaurant. By then we will determine our next step according to the information we have obtained. For this investigation, you are not allowed to say the word Chu Yang. But you must hear it from someone else. Mo Tianji said solemnly. Alright. We will be alone. Aosia Yun, you and GMO will be a team. Xiedan Xiong, you and Luo Kudi will be a team. Gu Duxing and I will be the third team. Let's move immediately. What about the explosives? Do you still have them? GMO asked carefully. When the word, explosives, was mentioned, he felt his scalp tingle. He still remembered the experiment with Mo Tianji 3 days ago. With only 200 kilograms of explosives, half of the mountain had been blown up. Now this big brother who didn't care about his life had 20,000 kilograms of explosives dangling from his fingers? Throw away the coffin and I will keep the explosives. Mo Tianji smiled. This is good stuff. We can't waste it. Besides, the Lan clan is so close to us. He said these words with a smile, but for some reason after hearing these words, the 5 brothers present all felt as if there was a poisonous snake crawling over their backs. It was chilly. This was a tavern. Although it was small, it was elegant. 10 tables, wind from all directions. 5 lakes drunk, friends from all over the world. This was the first and second couplet of this tavern. The horizontal scroll was also the name of this tavern. Come and get drunk. There were more than 1,000 taverns in Tianlan City that were bigger and more luxurious than this tavern. But this Come and Get Drunk tavern. It was publicly recognized as the #1 tavern in Tianlan City. There were only 10 tables. Every day, only 20 tables of food and drinks were prepared. If you wanted to get drunk at Come and Get Drunk, you had to make an appointment in advance. But today, 3 people came into the tavern without making an appointment. And they asked for a single room. Only heaven knew that there was only one single room in Come and Get Drunk. It was only open twice a day. Those who wanted to drink in the single room of Come and Get Drunk. All of them were of high status. If you were just rich, you wouldn't be able to get into this single room. Once the waiter saw that these 3 were guests, he went up to explain that there were no more seats. But that extremely ugly guy only snorted. Then he went straight to the single room. As he walked he shouted, "Fuck! The Lan clan has been burned down. Now that we're here to drink, there's no room. I wanna fucking take a look. Who dares to occupy this place and not let us do it? Are they tired of living?" In the next moment, the people who were drinking in the single room were chased out. No, there were still 2 people inside who were diligently cleaning up the tables. Everyone's faces were swollen. Everyone saw that it was a disaster. The person who was chased out was actually the clan leader of the Nyo clan. As everyone knew, the Nyo clan was the #1 clan among the subordinate clans of the Lan clan. They had always been very powerful. But this clan leader of the Nyo clan was chased out with a swollen face. Obviously he was slapped and suffered. He actually didn't leave and waited at the side to serve. Everyone's jaws dropped. I won't break the rules of Come and Get Drunk. But I want to get drunk here today. That domineering voice sounded. This Nyo or donkey has already given the room to me. You can just have a table. So, Nyo, settle the bill and get lost. Everyone was guessing that this clan leader of the Nyo clan definitely couldn't take this lying down. The next moment, someone might die. But what made everyone shocked was, this clan leader of the Nyo clan nodded and bowed as if he had been pardoned. He pulled the manager of Come and Get Drunk aside and gave him some instructions. Then he actually put down 10 purple crystals and instructed, it must be the best dishes, the best wine, the best chef. Then, with sweat on his face, he left in a hurry. Who were these 3 people? So fierce? Instantly, everyone eating in the hall also kept quiet out of fear. In just a short while, they all settled the bill and left, because a lazy voice came from the private room. Everyone, you can leave after eating and drinking. I'm not chasing you away. I'm just having a good discussion with you. Of course, if you don't want to leave, I can also talk about important matters in front of you. I don't mind. Yes, he wasn't chasing us away. He was indeed very polite. But the problem was, could the few of us withstand his politeness? I heard that, even the Lan clan was burned down? Towards Tan Tan's overbearing methods, Chu Yang could only smile bitterly. It had only been a few days since they last met and this junior brother of his had changed a lot. He would only use the most straightforward method to solve everything. Why? Dishes. Tan Tan was shouting. Hurry up. Damn it, so slow. You actually have the nerve to call yourself the #1 tavern. Everyone knew that the manager of Come and Get Drunk was a great expert who mingled in the mortal world. Therefore he could also withstand the pressure from all sides. His culinary skills were superb and his cultivation was also first-grade supreme martial artist. He had never been one to flatter others and he had never given anyone face. He could be said to be an extraordinary person of his generation. But at this moment, this expert was very sensible and personally cooking in the kitchen. And his eyes were full of fear. noble and virtuous. That also depended on the person. This ugly person who came in was obviously someone who could kill at the slightest disagreement. Even with his cultivation, he actually felt the blood in his body freeze after being glared at by the other party. If he pretended to be noble and virtuous in front of this person, he'd better cook. Not long after, the dishes were all served. Tan Tan waved casually and said, "All of you can go out and rest for a while." Then, with another wave of his hand, the room was completely enveloped by a second-grade supreme martial artist's divine sense. There were a few experts around who wanted to perk themselves up and eavesdrop. But once they came into contact with the periphery of the room, it was as if their brains were suddenly pierced by a red-hot awl. Then they screamed loudly and ran away. "Why are you here?" Chuyang took the lead and asked. After holding it in for a long time, he could finally say a few words at this moment. Tan Tan sighed. "Don't ask me first. Let me ask you a few things first. First, how is Master now?" Chuyang rolled his eyes. "Both Master and Mistress are at my place. Why, have you grown up and actually dared to ask me first?" Tan Tan laughed. "If you don't answer the second question well, I'll answer your question. I'll refuse to answer all of your questions." Chu Yang's eyes became dangerous, and he looked like he was about to flip out. Xie Danfeng laughed at the side. Tan Tan sat down solemnly, his face heavy. He used his fingers to tuck his hair back and looked at Chu Yang seriously. "Am I handsome? Am I more handsome now?" Xie Danfeng laughed out loud. Because this sentence was not said by Tan Tan, but by Chu Yang. Minister Chu very straightforwardly took the initiative to strike first. Tan Tan was stunned. "You?" Chu Yang looked at him very sincerely. "Am I handsome?" Then he suddenly looked shocked. "Am I really handsome?" Then he was wild with joy. "Wow, I'm really handsome." Then he looked at Tan Tan seriously. "Don't ask any more. I've already asked for you and I've also responded for you. Are you satisfied?" Tan Tan sat down on the chair like a deflated balloon and complained angrily, You're too unkind." Chu Yang snorted and clenched his fists. Suddenly his knuckles cracked. "Master once said that Mistress is my master. He wants to accompany Mistress. I have full authority to decide on the matters of the sect. If there's anything that's not pleasing to the eye, my eldest brother can do whatever he wants. He said that if the other brothers are disobedient, I can do whatever I want. It's fine as long as they're still alive." Other brothers? Other than Chu Yang and Tan Tan, where did Meng Chaoran have a third brother? As Chu Yang spoke, he slammed a tile on the table with a loud bang. He crossed his legs. It was Meng Chaoran's identity symbol. Tan Tan immediately softened and begged, "Chu Yang, you won't, right?" Chu Yang said with a fake smile, "I'm very interested in enforcing the sect rules on a lower-level supreme martial artist. Besides, Chu Yang, is it for you to call him that? How dare you? Lie down and stick up your butt." Tan Tan begged, "Senior brother? My dearest senior brother?" As he spoke, he acted like a pug. The only thing missing was a tail on his butt. "For Danfeng's sake, please forgive me," Xie Danfeng laughed out loud, out of breath. Chu Yang squinted and considered. "This?" Tan Tan came over and grabbed one of his arms, shaking it repeatedly. "Please?" Chu Yang shuddered. Okay. Stop shaking it. My spine is going soft. I'm scared of you." Xie Danfeng couldn't stop laughing at the side, but she felt extremely warm in her heart. Chu Yang's deliberate forcefulness and Tan Tan's deliberate clowning were all to tell the other party, "I'm still that, your senior brother when we were lowly. I'm still that, your junior brother when we were lowly." These were all to dilute the effects of the awakening of Tan Tan's consciousness, the Demon King's consciousness. Then both of them relaxed at once. They looked at each other and smiled. Without saying anything, they started right away. "Why are you so careless? Did you let the Lan clan know of your identity? This time, I originally wanted to exterminate the Lan clan. Why did you not hesitate to interfere?" Tan Tan said in a very dissatisfied manner. Chu Yang's heart warmed. He said, "You worry too much. The Lan clan knows of the Tribulation Sword Master's woman, but they don't know who the Tribulation Sword Master is. That's why they are so cautious. Otherwise, I wouldn't be standing here long ago. Besides, with your current cultivation, I'm afraid you can't destroy the Lan clan yet." Tan Tan was startled. Then he finally smiled. "Yes, it's like this. If the Lan clan had confirmed the identity of the Tribulation Sword Master, they definitely wouldn't be as calm as they were now. They should have started taking action long ago. Chu Yang definitely wouldn't be as relaxed as he was now. Perhaps he would have been captured and killed long ago. With the power of a big clan, There were indeed countless opportunities to get rid of Chu Yang, who hadn't become strong yet. But they didn't know. Moreover, Tan Tan also acknowledged the other words that Chu Yang had said. Ever since he saw Lan Buhui suddenly appear, he knew that it was impossible to destroy the Lan clan today. Just one Lan Buhui was enough to make him pay a heavy price, and he might not even win. Besides, Xie Danfeng was by his side. Then, who is your woman in the lower three heavens? Tan Tan had a flash of inspiration. Senior sister Wu Qianqian? Chu Yang coughed dryly. Qianqian is cough, but the Lan clan is talking about another one. Tan Tan let out a strange cry and whistled. Chu Yang glared at him angrily. Tan Tan shrank back and said, "Then what are you going to do? This isn't a good idea." Chu Yang said solemnly, "The lower three heavens have already made preparations. The reason why I came here this time was because I wanted to go down. However, since you're here, I suddenly have an idea. Is it possible to get rid of the Lan clan who knows a little about this? Or rather, get rid of the people who know about it? Get rid of them?" Tan Tan smiled bitterly and said, "That was my plan previously. Besides, I've already dealt with all the people the Lan clan sent to the lower three heavens. And I've also dealt with more than half of the people guarding the passageway. I've killed all the experts. It's also to make it easier for your brothers to come up. Although they might not necessarily take this path. I'm just doing my best. But speaking of destroying the Lan clan, that elder master from the Lan clan has definitely reached the level of a lower supreme martial artist. His strength is definitely above mine. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been pulled away by you. As long as this person is around, I'm afraid it'll be very difficult to destroy the Lan clan," said Tan Tan. Chu Yang nodded heavily and said, "During this period of time, we'll see." Tan Tan smiled. "Then I'll stay here with you and never leave your side. I'll attack wherever you say." Chu Yang snorted. "Don't tell me you still want me to thank you? I don't dare." Tan Tan's face immediately turned bitter. "Big brother, don't accuse me wrongly. I'm timid." The three of them laughed in unison. That night, the three of them found an inn to stay in. On the same night, Mo Qinji and the others also gathered neatly at the Wanli Inn. The information that everyone had gathered was all put into Mo Qinji's hands. The Bloodpayers Hall had a complete set of information for sale. Mo Qinji bought a copy without hesitation. Combined with the information that others had gathered, it was equivalent to all the major events in the heavens being recorded here. Mo Qinji frowned and muttered, "It's not very optimistic. Currently the biggest threat to boss seems to be the Lan clan. We can only make use of the Li clan's name, to give the Lan clan a big gift?" The five brothers were puzzled. "What?" Mo Qinji smiled faintly. "It's a small operation. It shouldn't be able to destroy the Lan clan. We'll just use these 20,000 kilograms of explosives to set off fireworks to celebrate our brothers finally coming up. But, how to set it off the loudest and the most beautiful? Let's discuss." This chapter is 5,300 words long. Chapter 1343. The Lan clan was really down on their luck these few days. After the second batch of people who went to the lower three heavens left, the Lan clan then started to clean up the mess. The majestic door that had been standing for 10,000 years was burned to ashes. Of course it couldn't be used anymore. The Lan clan naturally had to renovate it. Regarding this, the Lan clan could only laugh at themselves. It had been 10,000 years. They had long disliked it. Now that it was burned, they could change it into a beautiful one. Since the Lan clan wanted to carry out large-scale construction, they naturally needed to purchase items. Since so many people had died in the clan, they naturally had to organize funerals. The big shots in the clan were all worried about major matters. There were major matters everywhere. How could they care about these trivial matters? Naturally, they just needed to make arrangements. Besides, 70% to 80% of the Lan clan's current strength was basically depleted. More than 100 supreme martial artist experts from the secret forces had already rushed to the north to encircle and annihilate the Li clan. Another batch of supreme martial artists had gone to the lower three heavens. At the passageway of the upper three heavens, another batch of capable experts had to be sent out. Besides, in just 2 years, the number of super experts who had died in the clan had already exceeded 200. Under such circumstances, there really weren't many experts left in the Lan clan. Some of the capable experts had also either died or were crippled. Some had left the clan. Under such circumstances, the large-scale construction and the funerals naturally fell into the hands of the ordinary people in the Lan clan. And this time, the 10,000 years of drawbacks of the Lan clan had been completely exposed. To be honest, the Lan clan had been passed down for 10,000 years. It was really rotten to the extreme. But usually there were those experts suppressing and taking charge of matters. These people were all experts. They didn't have much need for women, wealth and such things. Therefore, even if there was chaos, it was the subordinates who secretly did things to fill their own pockets. As for bullying, of course there were some. But everyone just turned a blind eye to it. But this time it was practically brazen. When the tiger was not in the mountain, the monkey became the king. Therefore, the second-generation masters of the Lan clan collectively took action. This time it was really like a locust swarm passing through Tianlan City. For funerals, they naturally had to invite divination masters and so on. And these, although there weren't many in Tianlan City, it was quite enough. But how could these people come out this time just for this? Things like incense sticks, paper money, and spirit summoning banners would naturally need to be purchased as well. But how could this purchase be so simple? With such a heaven-sent opportunity, he could fill his own pockets. How could he be worthy of himself? Although the ancestors were dead, it wasn't good to take advantage of this opportunity to get rich. But how could he care about that right now? In an instant, it was like a pack of wolves had entered Tianlan City. Once the doors of the Lan clan were opened, it was as if a pack of wolves, tigers and leopards had been released. Everyone in Tianlan City suffered. Wanli Luomo Tianji leaned against the railing and pondered. Gu Duxing stood on one side with an indifferent look on his face. The other brothers were nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, there was a huge commotion below. On the street, a few people in luxurious clothes were rushing over. Their voices came from afar. What is this? And not bad, the Lan clan has requisitioned it. What? Money? Money my ass. Take them away. Fuck. You old bastard, you actually still want money? Puff, you really don't know what's good for you. Take them to the mass grave and feed them to the dogs. The Lan clan has requisitioned it. Do you have any objections? No objections? Why not? Fuck. You have no objections when we take your things for free? Are you a bastard? What? You have an objection? Fuck. How dare you have an objection when I take your things? Puff. Come over here, don't hide, little miss, haha, she's quite pretty. How old is she? And madam still needs a maid. Take her back. What are you crying for? It's your fortune that I took a liking to you. If you cry again, I'll beat you to death. Instantly there were cries below. They saw a man in luxurious clothes holding a young girl with one hand and walking back. Behind him. It must be the young girl's mother. She was crying and chasing after them. She kept kowtowing. However, she was kicked far away by the man in luxurious clothes. Blood spurted from her mouth and she was about to die. The young girl screamed miserably. She was about to pounce forward but was held tightly by the man. She lowered her head and bit his hand. Then she cried and pounced toward her mother's body. This bite caused blood to flow out. That person's ferocious nature erupted as he cried out in pain. With a clang, he pulled out his saber and lunged forward, stabbing it into the girl's back. With a sinister grin, he chopped the flower-like body into minced meat. In the end, he spat out a mouthful of saliva. You don't know how to appreciate favors. In an instant, the street was filled with cries and screams. It was a mess. Gu Duxing's eyes were filled with anger. He was about to jump down. However, he was stopped by Imo Tianji. What are you doing? Gu Duxing said angrily, killing this bunch of scum. Nonsense. Imo Tianji said angrily, now that you've exposed your tracks, how are we going to carry out our grand plan? Gu Duxing sneered. Are we going to watch these bastards do things that are devoid of conscience? You and I clearly have the power to stop them, but we're going to stand by and watch? Imo Tianji, where's your conscience? Imo Tianji snorted and said, with my conscience, we must uproot this kind of clan from its roots. Only then will we be doing the people a favor. If you go out like this and kill these people, you'll expose yourself and put all of us in a passive position. The other party's experts will gather here. How many can we kill? He patted Gu Duxing on the shoulder. Don't be impatient. Duxing, we won't ignore this. Gu Duxing's eyes were filled with a sharp, murderous intent. He snorted heavily and said, if you can't come up with a solution, I'll kill my way into the Lan clan compound alone. Imo Tianji smiled bitterly and said, what you see is the chaos in front of you, but what I see is not. Gu Duxing frowned. The chaos below was still going on. There were more and more of them and it was getting more and more chaotic. It was as if the situation was everywhere. There were also some members of the Lan clan who were holding a list and looking around. On the list were the names of the pretty ladies in Tianlan City in recent years, their home addresses, their parents' names. The details were all there. It was very specific. Mo Tianji sighed deeply. Duxing, look, these people from the Lan clan are so proficient in doing such things. They're so unscrupulous. This proves that it's not their first time. They must have done it dozens or hundreds of times before they can be so proficient in it. They're completely domineering. What does this prove? Gu Duxing said coldly, it proves that the Lan clan should be eliminated. Mo Tianji nodded heavily. It said that before the appearance of the Calamity Sword Master, no clan could last for 10,000 years. Moreover, there's one thing worth noting. There's basically no dynasty in the lower three heavens that can last for more than 1,000 years. Why? Because after a long time, it's bound to decay. The rich won't last for more than 3 generations and the poor won't last for more than 5 generations. This is a fixed number. Even the clans in the lower three heavens that have a few hundred years of history will be full of good-for-nothings. The Lan clan. From the looks of it, it's already rotten to the core. There seemed to be a deeper meaning in Mo Tianji's voice. Gu Duxing frowned. What you mean is, Mo Tianji said, the Lan clan of today. It's the Gu clan, Mo clan, Dong clan 10,000 years later. Do you understand? Gu Duxing's body shook and he looked at Mo Tianji in shock. We're the big clans in the future. There was a hint of coldness in Mo Tianji's expression. Our clans can also last for 10,000 years. But I'm afraid that in less than 10,000 years or even a few thousand years, we'll become like the Lan clan, a malignant tumor growing in the heavenly realm. Gu Duxing fell silent. He looked at the chaos below and listened to the cries of countless people. He couldn't help but ask himself, if the one doing such a disgusting thing down there is my grandson, what would I do? How would my heart feel? Unavoidable? Gu Duxing's voice was a little dry. For example, the rules of the ancestors? Absolutely impossible. Mo Tianji shook his head slowly. Any strict rules of the clan, any teachings of the ancestors. In such a situation there's nothing we can do. We can only let it rot. Then, let other righteous people come and exterminate it. Then, that righteous person will establish the clan again and wait for it to rot after hundreds or thousands of years. Wait for it to be destroyed again. But it's still not enough that there's no such clan and country in this world. So, humans are only building and destroying it again and again, repeating everyone's fate. Mo Tianji said somewhat mockingly, after a few generations of heroes, there will definitely be a bear. And after a few generations of bears, there will definitely be a dandy. After that, there will be no conscience left and then we can see the destruction. Today we've exterminated the Lan clan, and we can see that thousands of years later, our clans will also be exterminated like this. Gu Duxing sighed and said heavily, fortunately we still have a trace of conscience now and we can still exterminate these shameless people. In the future, if my grandson is also like this, then I, Gu Duxing, will not hesitate to exterminate my own bloodline with my own hands. Mo Tianji shook his head gently. That's true. But by then I don't know where you'll be. Gu Duxing was stunned. Where can I go? Mo Tianji's eyes were deep. He slowly raised his head, looked at the endless sky and exhaled deeply. Below, at the end of the street, there was suddenly a tragic cry, and there was a flash of blood there. Gu Duxing and Mo Tianji looked over and saw that there was actually a brilliant light there, as if flowers were suddenly blooming there one after another. Viburnum flowers? Gu Duxing couldn't help but be shocked. Xie Danxiong has made a move? What's going on? He's with Ao Shiyun. No matter how you look at it, he should be mature and prudent. I originally thought that it was GMO and Luo Kadi who started it. How can it be the two of them? Xie Danxiong's furious voice came from afar. Are you blind? Mo Tianji sighed. Cough, from this sentence I'm afraid it's because Xie Danxiong is too handsome. Too handsome? Gu Duxing was a little confused. I heard that some people from big clans are tired of playing with beauties. Mo Tianji actually grinned. Like to play with rabbits? Chapter 1344. Gu Duxing was speechless for a moment. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Tianji, you really know how to joke. Mo Tianji sighed and said, I'm not joking. Du Xing, you have to remember that the 4 of them can make a ruckus and kill a few people to vent their anger. But the 2 of us can't make a move or show our faces. At most, we have to cover for them, understand? Gu Duxing nodded. We don't need too many people to enter the Lan clan in the first place. Mo Tianji pondered. Just let the 4 of them vent their anger. Gu Duxing sighed. Looking at the viburnum flowers below, which were becoming more and more dazzling, it was clear to see how angry Xie Danxiong was. He couldn't help but mutter, "They're really lucky to have taken a fancy to a rabbit like Xie Danxiong." Xie Danxiong was indeed about to go crazy from anger. He accompanied Ao Shiyun to shop and gather information, but he didn't find any new valuable information. Just as he was feeling depressed, he saw a commotion in front of them. The two of them went over to take a look and saw a group of Lan clan members domineering, robbing, threatening, or there was also a guy who held onto a young girl and refused to let go. This young girl was pretty, and from the way she was dressed, she seemed to have some background. At least she wasn't a girl from a small family. Let go. The young girl struggled hard. "I'm from the Qing clan." "Qing clan?" That Lan clan steward had a lewd smile on his face. "Qing clan is just nice. Isn't that a bed?" As he spoke, he touched the young girl's face. The Qing clan seemed to be a subsidiary clan of the Lan clan, and it wasn't a very big one. A few of the young girl's guards went forward to stop them, but they were pushed aside by a few Lan clan warriors. Both sides started to argue. In an instant, the situation had escalated. As the young girl kicked the steward's lower body fiercely, the steward screamed and squatted down. He roared, "Beat her up. Today this little girl is determined to play with me if I don't play her to death. I won't be called the 10th master of the Lan clan." The young girl's expression changed. Only then did she know that this Lan clan member was actually the 10th master of the Lan clan. This time it was really, the gleam of a blade flashed and the people from the Lan clan made the first move. Almost in an instant, the few guards of the young lady were either dead or injured. The young girl still wanted to resist, but she was quickly captured and slapped on the face. Immediately, her white and tender face became red and swollen. She seemed to have been spoiled at home. Tears immediately flowed down his cheeks. That Lan clan's 10th master curled up his body and stood up. With a hideous smile, he said, "Little b****, how dare you pretend to be so chaste in front of me? Master 10 won't let you pretend. Take off this little bitch's clothes for me." The Qing family. What a fucking big family. So what if I let this little b***th walk around Tianlan City alone? Let go. Xie Danxiong couldn't bear it any longer. He angrily said, "It's broad daylight. Abducting a civilian girl? Is being so shameless the family teachings of the Lan clan for 10,000 years? That 10th master turned his head to take a look, and his eyes immediately widened. Xie Danxiong had a tall stature. He had sword-like eyebrows, starry eyes, and thin lips. His tall stature was wrapped in a black cloak. The contrast between black and white made him look even more elegant and handsome. She was a girl. She wasn't as handsome as Xie Danxiong. In the blink of an eye, this 10th master's mouth was drooling. He looked at Xie Danxiong as if a starving dog had seen a meat bone, or an old pervert who had been a bachelor for more than 20 years had seen a naked beauty. Instantly, he was somewhat dazzled. Unknowingly, he let go of the girl and walked towards Xie Danxiong with a lewd smile. "Ah, I didn't expect there to be such high-quality goods here. TSK. Not bad, not bad." He walked one round around Xie Danxiong, smacked his lips and said, "The rarest thing is that her butt is also very perky." Then he said, "Since this, little brother said that you can't abduct civilian girls, then forget it. Let that little b***tch go. I'm in a good mood today. But I say, little brother. You let her go. You have to compensate me." Xie Danxiong shuddered. Ao Shiyun, who was at the side, had goosebumps all over his body. "What are you doing?" Xie Danxiong asked angrily. Let her go. You accompany me." That 10th master looked at Xie Danxiong with an impatient gaze. Truly a good rabbit." "I accompany you? Rabbit?" Xie Danxiong had long known that some people in this world had strange and disgusting hobbies. But he never dreamed that he would actually become the target of these people one day. "I'll treat you very well, little darling." 10th master's lewd smile was almost touching Xie Danxiong's face. And there was actually a bulge in his crotch. "Be good, go back with me. I'll also let you enjoy flying to the sky. Look at your soft and tender flesh. As the saying goes, 3 flat pieces are not as round as 1 round." Scram! Xie Danxiong exploded in an instant. His handsome face contorted in an instant. "You're the rabbit. Your whole family are rabbits. I'll slaughter you bunch of rabbits." Xie Danxiong grabbed this 10th master furiously. The next moment, the viburnum flowers bloomed. This 10th master's erect male characteristics didn't even have time to fade before they bloomed into a pile of flesh and blood. Then Xie Danxiong went completely crazy. The viburnum flowers bloomed and he rushed out. Along the way, all the people wearing the Lan clan's clothes were swept away by him. His body swept past like a gust of wind. Behind him was a sea of broken limbs and broken bodies. Behind him, Ao Shiyun was laughing so hard that he was almost twitching all over. Xia Dan Xiong went on a killing spree along the way. He was really mad today. He had been restraining himself, but now he couldn't anymore. Anyway, he had already started killing. Killing one was killing a group was still killing. Blood was really flowing along the way. This was originally the busiest street in Tianlan City. This street was also the focus of the Lan clan's trip this time. Xia Dan Xiong killed quite a number of people along the way. Instantly, there were exclamations everywhere. Xia Dan Xiong was a solid second-grade peak-level supreme martial artist. This time he went on a killing spree. Just the people from the Lan clan who were out for external affairs could really kill a bunch of them with just a finger. What more, the viburnum flowers. Blood flowed like a river. Gu Duxing and Mo Tianji were watching from above. They were both a little shocked. They had never seen Xia Dan Xiong throw such a huge tantrum. Especially that sentence, "You're the rabbit. Your whole family are rabbits." This sentence really revealed the truth of the matter. Even Mo Tianji and Gu Duxing, these two people who didn't usually like to laugh, burst into laughter. As expected. On the other side there was also a commotion. Obviously, GMO and Luo Kadi were two people who wanted to see the world in chaos. Once they heard this, they started fighting. When Xia Dan Xiong was shouting, the two of them directly attacked from the other side. "Oh, kill all these rabbits. Dog ant. Damn it." These two famous curses were heard. How could Mo Tianji and Gu Duxing not know what was going on? Instantly they held their foreheads with one hand, speechless. These two fellows were indeed unwilling to be left out. Sure enough, they started fighting. Get ready to provide support. This is the Lan clan's base camp. Mo Tianji sighed with a headache. These bastards, can't they save some strength for my plan? Gu Duxing laughed and turned to leave. The unlucky Lan clan was once again in chaos. After half a day, the people who were sent out were slaughtered in a disorderly manner. Lan Yingfeng was furious and immediately sent people to investigate thoroughly. These people naturally wouldn't say what they did when they returned. They would only say that a few foreigners were bullying the Lan clan and so on. A few supreme martial artist experts were sent out to search, but they didn't find anything. Seeing that it was already afternoon, two guests suddenly came to the main gate of the Lan clan. Two young men. One was gentle and refined while the other was sharp and cold. "May I know if Master Lan is here?" Mo Tianji bowed gently and elegantly. "Please inform him that an old friend of 3 days ago is here to visit. Master Lan, please take the time to meet him." During the previous battle at the Lake of Despair, the Lan clan only sent a young man and he was very low-key. But what kind of person was Mo Tianji? Naturally, he had already investigated all the information that he could use. He also found out the identity of this Master Lan. At that time, this Master Lan had once wanted to recruit Gu Duxing. And now, Mo Tianji was using this reason that had long been forgotten to come to visit. An old friend of 3 days ago? The guard at the main gate was much more amiable. Ever since the last time he cursed someone as ugly and almost had his entire clan wiped out. Now the guards at the main gate of the Lan clan were all more amiable than the previous one. "Please wait for a moment. I will inform Master Lan," the guard said. "Sorry to trouble you, big brother." Mo Tianji handed over 2 purple crystals without saying anything. The guard's eyes lit up and he silently took them. Not long after, a person came out of the main gate of the Lan clan. It was Master Lan Yingyu, who had gone to the upper 3 days ago. He looked confused. "Looking for me? An old friend of 3 days ago?" Mo Tianji saw him from afar and immediately smiled. "Master Lan, do you still remember the battle at the Lake of Despair?" Lan Yingyu immediately remembered. "Oh, you are that Mo clan? Aha, isn't this the young sword sovereign? What a rare guest. Please, please." Mo Tianji said gratefully, "I didn't expect Master Lan to still remember us. Ah, both of us are really flattered." Lan Yingyu sighed. "Young talents. Of course I remember. It's just that the two of you have come to the upper 3 heavens this time because..." Mo Tianji smiled reservedly. Although the upper 3 heavens is big, it's still not enough compared to the splendor of the upper 3 heavens. Lan Yingyu's eyes lit up. "What do you mean, Master Mo?" Mo Tianji said, "It depends on whether Master Lan can give us a job. Haha, both of us came from afar to seek shelter. We were originally nervous. After all, in the upper 3 heavens, if we were to fight alone, that feeling..." Lan Yingyu was overjoyed. The Lan clan was currently in dire need of manpower. Both of them were martial artists. This trip was really a rare gain. However, he still maintained a reserved expression and said, "But I wonder what your current cultivation level is?" Gu Duxing said, "Sword Saint?" "Great." Emo Chenji said, "I'm ashamed. My cultivation level has almost not increased." But Lan Yingyu could no longer hear Emo Chenji's words. He was completely shocked by Gu Duxing's words. Sword Saint quality. Recommended a new book. Title: Hedonistic Immortal Doctor Book ID, 2510964 Author: Bu Jing Introduction. We are all mortals. But Ling Yun is not. Because he knows cultivation and has even reached the tribulation stage. Although Ling Yun is still a hedonistic, he specializes in slapping the faces of hedonistic people. Chapter 1345. Grade of Sword Saint. This was the highest level that Gu Duxing could reveal after concealing his cultivation. It was also the aura that could not be concealed the most. It was tailor-made for Mo Tianji, deliberately letting Gu Duxing reveal a kind of sharp edge. Lan Yingyu looked over and saw that Gu Duxing was full of brilliance. Sword intent was everywhere in his every move, as if every strand of hair also contained sharp sword aura. This was the charm of a grade 7 Sword Saint. Sword aura Yangtze River, Sword Light Big Dipper. Lan Yingyu was extremely shocked. Back then he recruited Gu Duxing in the upper three heavens only because he saw his potential. Although Gu Duxing was already a Sword Emperor at that time, in Lan Yingyu's view, it was only his potential that was terrifying. But he did not expect his advancement to be so amazing. In just 2 years he actually rushed all the way from Sword Emperor to grade of Sword Saint. This kind of advancement was also unprecedented in the upper three heavens, let alone in the upper three heavens where spiritual energy was severely lacking. Lan Yingyu was so excited that his face turned red. "Brother Gu, really?" Gu Duxing nodded coldly and said, "Really?" Lan Yingyu suddenly got up. "Do you dare to fight?" Gu Duxing's gaze swept over and sword intent was everywhere. He said indifferently, "I'm afraid that the sword has no eyes." Mo Chenji cursed in his heart. Gu Duxing is such a fool, he doesn't know how to be humble when he comes to ask for help. He hurriedly said, "Duxing has always practiced sword techniques that kill people. I'm afraid this is not suitable for sparring." "I see." Lan Yingyu was relieved. He smiled and said, "I don't think there will be any accidents. I'll tell Big Brother to make arrangements." After saying that he hurried out. Mo Chenji said in a low voice, "Second Brother Gu, can your expression be gentler?" Gu Duxing sneered. "You can control heaven and earth, but can you control my face?" Mo Chenji was speechless. Gu Duxing said telepathically, "Tianji, it's too risky this time. The heavens have just opened, won't they suspect that we are the tribulation that just came up?" Mo Chenji smiled indifferently and said telepathically, "I'm just afraid, they won't suspect." Lan Yingyu hurriedly went to look for Lan Yingfeng. Lan Yingfeng was in a terrible state. When he heard this he couldn't help but be stunned. "There's such a thing?" "Absolutely." Lan Yingfeng pondered. He muttered, But why does the name Gu Duxing sound so familiar?" Lan Yingyu said, "Ha, Elder Brother's memory is indeed amazing. The last time I came back I told Elder Brother about the several rising stars of the upper three heavens. The first one is Gu Duxing." Lan Yingfeng nodded. "I see." He felt that his memory was a little fuzzy. In fact, Lan Yingfeng himself was not confused, but he had already heard the name Gu Duxing from 2 people. Naturally it was Lan Yingyu. The second person was none other than the patriarch who was in seclusion. After the elder master returned from a trip, he mentioned Gu Duxing's name to Lan Yingfeng. Then he went out again. Lan Yingfeng didn't care at all. He had indeed forgotten. Lan Yingfeng frowned and said, "If that's the case, this is a good thing. However, now that the sky has opened, the tribulation is coming. Since this person is such a genius, could he be one of the tribulations?" Lan Yingyu was stunned. He had never thought of this possibility. However, it doesn't matter if he is one of the tribulations. And he specially came to join us. This person has to stay and take a look. Lan Yingfeng pondered for a while and said, "Sword Saint grade. Then, let's arrange for a first-grade supreme martial artist to go and try." 10 minutes later. Gu Duxing and Mo Tianji were invited to the small square outside the hall. On the square stood an amiable-looking old man. Around them, Lan Yingfeng and 7 or 8 other people of the Lan clan were watching the battle. Obviously, the Lan clan attached great importance to this battle. A mere Sword Saint came to join them. There was no need to take it so seriously. The key was Lan Yingfeng's guess. Could he be one of the tribulations? This conjecture made this test a very important one. At this moment, Lan Yingfeng's gaze was fixed on Gu Duxing. Gu Duxing stood at the side of the square, side by side with Mo Tianji. However, his aura was lonely, bleak and desolate. Although he was standing in the crowd, he used this inexplicable aura to inadvertently isolate himself. He didn't seem to belong to this world, nor to this space. He was completely alone. Lan Yingfeng frowned and thought to himself, sealing the heart and locking the mind, the supreme way of the sword. If this is a tribulation, isn't it too repulsive? Please? The first-grade supreme martial artist from the Lan clan issued an invitation. Gu Duxing's face was as cold as ice. He took a step forward, his hand on the sword hilt, his black robe fluttering in the wind, and he remained silent. Only his two sharp eyes shot out two rays of light. In an instant, sword aura shot into the sky. Although he didn't say anything, everyone understood what he wanted to say. To fight is to kill. The face of the supreme martial artist opposite him turned cold and he sneered. Ignorant kid, how dare you talk nonsense? Gu Duxing's gaze didn't move, his expression didn't change and his body didn't move. But with a clang, the black dragon sword had already appeared in his hand like a flash of light. An inviolable and holy aura of a king spread out. The supreme martial artist opposite him had long been prepared for this. One of his hands had been on the sword hilt, but at this moment, the sound of the sword was clear and loud as if it went straight into the clouds. For a moment he couldn't control it. The long sword at his waist let out a cheerful sound and actually unsheathed itself by half a foot. Cold light flashed. The supreme martial artist drew his sword, his expression already changing. Everyone's expression changed at the same time. They didn't expect that the second-grade sword intent of a sword saint could actually affect a first-grade supreme martial artist. This was simply unthinkable. Everyone's faces were filled with shock and contemplation. It turned out that a sword saint was really so powerful. The two people on the field were already engaged in a fierce battle. At this moment, Lan Yingfeng didn't care about winning or losing. He was only paying attention to Gu Duxing's temperament and expression when he used the sword. The few people around him were the same. How is it? Lan Yingfeng transmitted his voice softly. The sword is lonely, the heart is lonely, a supreme martial artist beside him said. Abandoning everything, another person said. The way of the sword is supreme. This is a heartless person, another person said. The feelings of tribulation are earth-shattering. Such a heartless person can't be a tribulation. Someone concluded. The few people nodded slowly. Lan Yingfeng frowned. While everyone was discussing, a muffled groan came from the field. The result was already out. The shoulder of the Lan clan supreme martial artist was cut, and blood was dripping. Gu Duxing's chest was slashed twice, and his flesh was badly mutilated. But that muffled groan came from the mouth of the Lan clan supreme martial artist. As for Gu Duxing, his expression didn't even change. His gaze was indifferent, as if the bleeding wound on his chest wasn't his. This gave people the feeling that even if his head was chopped off, Gu Duxing wouldn't make a sound. He was such a person. The result of this battle was somewhat different from what everyone had predicted. Originally, everyone thought that it would be good enough if Gu Duxing could be defeated after a few moves. But they didn't expect that it would actually be a lose-lose situation. Next, Lan Yingfeng naturally pretended to be very happy. He sent people to arrange for Gu Duxing and Mo Tianji to be treated in the inner court and instructed them to serve them well. After some consolation, finally they returned to the secret chamber. Immediately send capable people to the 3 days to find out news about Gu Duxing. I want all accurate news. Lan Yingfeng gave the order at once. Once you get the news, rush back immediately. Report to me as soon as possible. Yes. Act immediately. Lan Yingfeng looked at the people leaving, a strange expression on his face. Whether you are one of the tribulations or not, once you are in the Lan clan, you can forget about going out again. Just give me 3 days and all your details will be laid out in front of me. Lan Yingfeng sneered in his heart. Lan Yingfeng didn't expect that Mo Tianji would give him 3 days. Mo Tianji wouldn't even give him half an hour's time. Duxing, how is it? No problem. That's good. Let's start tonight. So fast. Gu Duxing was a little shocked. Tonight is definitely the time when they are watching us the most closely. Mo Tianji sneered. When they relax we will be finished. Our safest time. Only this half a night or even the second half of the night is not safe. Tonight is the first chaos of the tribulations. The moon was dark and the wind was strong. A few supreme martial artists were in the dark, paying attention to the guest room where Mo Tianji and Gu Duxing were staying. For two people with the highest cultivation level of martial saint, it was already very generous of the Lan clan to send 4 supreme martial artists to watch over them. Darkness. A dark shadow suddenly appeared outside the guest room. In the darkness, a completely black sword light seemed to flash. Gu Duxing supported the supreme martial artist whose throat he had just slashed with his sword and gently placed him on the ground. It was as if he had lowered his footsteps and stepped on a blade of grass. On one side, a low voice said, Gu Duxing heaved a sigh of relief and lowered his voice. He said vaguely, "Something's not right. What's not right?" With the sound of the wind, another supreme martial artist leaped over at lightning speed. A section of a completely black sword tip silently pierced his throat at the same moment he came over. The sword aura suddenly exploded and took control of his brain immediately. The sword aura exploded and then took control of his meridians, rushed into his dantian and exploded. This supreme martial artist also fell down without making a sound. With Gu Duxing's current cultivation level of a second-grade sword sovereign, it was a piece of cake for him to deal with a few ordinary first-grade supreme martial artists with all his strength. He placed the 2 of them against the wall, completely absorbed the smell of blood with the black dragon sword, and let the 2 corpses sit opposite each other. If someone saw this, they would only think that the 2 of them were discussing or thinking about something with their heads lowered. The entire passageway on one side opened. Gu Duxing exhaled softly. This exhalation traveled far and silently, hitting Mo Tianji's window. Under the light, Mo Tianji's figure appeared in the window. He seemed to sway a little and then opened the window. The 2 supreme martial artists on the other side immediately tensed up. Mo Tianji sighed and murmured, "The upper 3 heavens is really different." He actually took a deep breath and looked at the starlight in the sky with a face full of affection. The 2 supreme martial artists relaxed. Mo Tianji sighed for a while and then finally blew out the light. With only a rustling sound he went to bed. But the window on the other side opened gently. Just when the 2 supreme martial artists thought that Mo Tianji had gone back to sleep, Mo Tianji himself floated out silently. The sound of Fang Qingrou's breathing was still there. It was a small device that Chu Yang had left for Mo Tianji. It could imitate the sound of sleeping people naturally with the help of the wind. This premise exists, but I forgot what it was called. Cough ashamed. Cough. Many people were dissatisfied with the setting, saying things that had never been said before, saying that in the beginning, the Supremes were invincible, but later on, the Supremes were everywhere. Let me say it again here. The first chapter of The Proud World mentioned the Heavenly Imperial Court. Tribulation of the Heavenly Imperial Court, 1 sword to destroy the world, thousands of years to reign supreme, the Heavenly Imperial Court. In the first 10 chapters, it said that mighty people could fold the Heavenly Imperial Court. Even the Heavenly Imperial Court could be folded. What was a supreme martial artist? As for why the Heavenly Imperial Court was divided into upper and lower planes, each plane had its own system. It was to avoid the phenomenon of king-level experts in the beginning, but supreme martial artists were inferior to dogs later on. Because different planes had different standards. If you want to measure the Heavenly Imperial Court with the lower 3 heavens, you might as well measure Sun Wukong with modern society. Chapter 1346. Gu Duxing was waiting anxiously, but when he saw Mo Tianji floating over leisurely, he couldn't help but get angry. "Did you clean it up?" Mo Tianji asked through telepathy. "My divine sense has covered it," Gu Duxing said with a cold face. "Everything is covered by my sword aura and divine sense. It can completely block the divine senses of other supreme martial artists." Mo Tianji snorted and said, "Don't be careless." Gu Duxing snorted and said, "Nonsense, if I was as slow as you, I would have been discovered long ago." Mo Tianji smiled and didn't say anything. Then he estimated the distance between the guest room and the main building of the Lan clan and frowned slightly. It was close to 1,000 feet, and this distance was an insurmountable chasm. If the explosives were detonated in the guest room, although it could create a large-scale disturbance, it couldn't shake the foundation of the Lan clan. The direction of the main building was the best place. Mo Tianji frowned and observed for a while before saying, "Duxing, look. The terrain of the Lan clan is basically like this. The main building is on the north side, and the north side is surrounded by the dragon veins. According to the general feng shui layout, that must be the ancestral hall of the clan." Gu Duxing was completely ignorant of all these. He said, "Ah." Mo Tianji said lightly, Generally speaking, the ancestral hall of the clan is extremely important to every clan. However, because such a place is a little gloomy, not many people are willing to guard it. Therefore, the people guarding such an important place won't be of high status. Gu Duxing nodded. He knew about this. The ancestral hall of the clan was only supreme in name, but its actual value was equivalent to nothing. Some treasures could be stored in the warehouse, but only memorial tablets could be placed in the ancestral hall. Which thief would be so blind? Stealing from the ancestral hall? Therefore, this place was very important to the internal affairs of a clan. But to outsiders it was really worthless. It was only natural that there weren't any experts guarding the place. This place is the most inconspicuous. However, the overall position is the core of the Lan clan. Only by detonating it here can the greatest effect be achieved. Emo Tianji said lightly. Cough. Blowing up their ancestral hall together is a little sinister. Gu Duxing admitted that Emo Tianji's words were reasonable, but he still had some misgivings. If the ancestral hall was blown up, it was no different from digging up the ancestral graves. This was a taboo in the heavenly layer. Emo Tianji rolled his eyes and said, "If you don't blow up their ancestors, we won't have the chance to become their ancestors. At a time like this, you're actually being virtuous and modest?" Gu Duxing smiled bitterly. Emo Tianji raised his eyes and looked around. He used his heart to sense and said, "There should be a warehouse several hundred feet away from the ancestral hall. There's a dense aura of treasures over there, but it's not obvious on the ground. It should be underground. It's usually a place like this." They were all very confidential, but the more confidential the place was, the more confidential it was. That's the most important thing. After that, it's the sleeping quarters of the Lan clan. Emo Tianji calculated and finally made up his mind. "I want you to rush into the Lan family's ancestral hall within half a breath's time. I'll rush in with you." When you rushed in, I happened to be 500 feet away. Immediately pour out all the explosives. Then, without stopping, come to me immediately. The moment you move, it'll be the moment my phosphorus arrow shoots. The moment you come to my side, it'll be the moment the phosphorus arrow shoots the gunpowder. The first wave of explosion will begin. Then we'll leave at the same time. Emo Tianji said methodically, "That way it'll be an earth-shattering chaos. Even if someone discovers us at that time, they won't be able to do anything." Gu Duxing gasped. "You're crazy. This is 22,000 kilograms of explosives. Once it's detonated, you and I will only be 500 feet away. We won't be able to escape the range of the explosives at all." Emo Tianji said, "I have my own plans for this. After all, we'll be able to keep our lives and escape." Gu Duxing shook his head repeatedly. "Tianji, if that's the case, just rush out now and ignore me. Then I'll rush in and detonate the explosives myself and find a chance to escape." Emo Tianji glared. "Do you think I'll lie to you? It's settled then. Let's start immediately." Gu Duxing hesitated. "It's only the second night watch. The security will be tight at the third night watch." Emo Tianji sighed. "Who doesn't know that the third night watch is the most suitable time for night walkers? Why are you so awkward today?" Gu Duxing smiled bitterly and finally said, "All right." He thought to himself, "Why am I so awkward? Isn't it all because of you? If I'm alone, would I really care about anything? Besides, I'm a second-grade peak sword supremacy. If I really want to escape, I'm already prepared and completely confident. Isn't it because I'm afraid something will happen to you?" Of course, Emo Tianji knew how Gu Duxing felt. He said in a more serious tone, "Duxing, you should know my temper. Caution comes first in everything. If I wasn't confident, why would I accompany you to take this risk?" Gu Duxing perked up. "All right. Let's go." Emo Tianji's telepathic message vibrated. Gu Duxing's body shot out like an arrow. From the start, his speed had already reached the limit that Gu Duxing could reach. The speed of a second-grade sword supremacy was completely displayed without any scruples. The thin body in black cut through space with a hiss, bringing out a blurry white smoke and a soft sonic boom. In just a flash, he was already 700 to 800 feet away. Emo Tianji followed closely behind. Everything was within Emo Tianji's expectations. Once he started to take action, it was irreversible and unstoppable. Because there was only this little bit of time. Even if someone discovered the two of them now, they would definitely not be able to react in time to stop Gu Duxing. Just as Gu Duxing started to move, 3 people in the Lan clan compound opened their eyes at the same time. A supreme martial artist is running desperately? What's going on? The next moment, these 3 people soared up and flew out of their own rooms. They flew into the sky and looked down at the entire Lan clan compound. However, just as they thought of this person, Gu Duxing's body let out a sharp whistle in the darkness and had already rushed into the ancestral hall at lightning speed. Then, without caring if there was anyone inside, he opened the 2 rings completely. All the bundles and piles of explosives were poured onto the ground like a small mountain. Then there was a splash. A few large barrels of oil were poured onto the pile of explosives. By the time these 3 people had just started to float out, Gu Duxing had already retreated back to the way he had come. When they soared into the sky, when he started to observe the Lan clan compound, Mo Tianji was already 500 feet away from the ancestral hall. He sat on his horse and raised his bow. The bowstring was like a full moon and a black ghost-like arrow flickered with a faint phosphorescence. He shot it out. He entered the ancestral hall. And at this time, Gu Duxing had already reached Mo Tianji's side. Go! Mo Tianji roared and his body suddenly leaped outwards. Gu Duxing rushed over like a hurricane and grabbed Mo Tianji's belt and rushed out at lightning speed. Then, Mo Tianji's expression relaxed. He touched his ring with his finger, and a strangely shaped big shield made of purple crystals appeared in his hand. It appeared in his hands. Then he raised the shield behind him and Gu Duxing's backs. There's a spy. Where are you going? Stay. In 3 directions. 3 voices sounded in shock and anger at the same time. Then 3 figures rushed over from 3 directions at the same time. Before they arrived, a mountain-like pressure was already coming down on them. A long whistle shook the night sky of the Lan clan. The Lan clan of the great clans from today onwards will become history. It was Gu Duxing's voice. Gu Duxing had already rushed over 200 feet away. On the opposite side, there were also a few Lan clan experts coming to intercept him. Gu Duxing was just about to draw his black dragon sword when he was stopped by Mo Tianji. Gu Duxing could not understand it at all. We are fleeing for our lives, but Mo Tianji has created such a grotesquely shaped shield. This has caused our speed to drop by more than 1 level. And now, Mo Tianji actually didn't allow him to draw his sword. Was he really courting death? At this time, there was already a big fire in the direction of the ancestral hall. There was no explosion yet. A few figures dashed toward the ancestral hall. A few figures pounced toward Mo Tianji and Gu Duxing. There were also a few figures who flew into the air in a flurry. In the distance, the experts of the Lan clan were gathering here from all directions. If this continued, even if Gu Duxing and Mo Tianji grew wings, they would definitely not be able to escape. At this moment, a dazzling light suddenly lit up. Then there was an earth-shattering explosion. With a boom, a huge mushroom cloud rose from the direction of the Lan clan's ancestral hall. All the surrounding buildings collapsed neatly. The experts who were rushing over to put out the fire were all caught off guard and turned into flying people with the smell of meat all over their bodies. At this moment, everyone felt as if they had lost their hearing. Many people were shaken and fell from the sky like dumplings. This was only a small portion of the explosives that had exploded. Most of the explosives were sent flying in all directions by the impact of this explosion. Then, there was another huge explosion that shook the mountains and rivers. This was the explosion of the main force. Then, there were explosions in all directions at the same time. Those were the explosions of the explosives that had been pushed out by the airwaves. The Lan clan's courtyard was turned upside down. On the ground, a huge crack suddenly appeared that stretched for hundreds of miles. It was so deep that the bottom couldn't be seen. Following which, countless cracks spread out and countless human houses fell into them. Words couldn't describe the misery of this moment. The sturdiest house of the Lan clan's main house actually flew a few thousand feet into the sky and then disintegrated at a height of 1,000 feet. If someone was interested to observe, they would be able to see that in the sky, from the disintegrated house, a few naked human bodies flew out. Gu Duxing and Mo Tianji only felt a sudden weight on their backs. The air waves from the explosion pressed down on them. The 2 of them used all their strength to hold on to that shield made of an unknown material. Almost in an instant, blood flowed out of their 7 apertures. The force of the explosion was like the collapse of heaven and earth. It pushed this shield and disappeared into the night sky with a whoosh. They didn't know how far they had gone. In short, the Lan clan experts who were bleeding from their 7 apertures only heard a whoosh and the 2 people in front of them suddenly disappeared. Chapter 1347. Starting from the center of the Lan clan compound, if one were to look at it from a high altitude, they would be able to clearly see that violent air current sweeping out in all directions with an unstoppable force. Everywhere it passed, the entire Lan clan compound turned into nothingness. Countless human bodies, upon coming into contact with this air current, suddenly disintegrated in such a bizarre manner without even having the time to scream. The impact of the explosion rushed out in all directions, leaving behind only a bottomless pit. At the bottom of the pit, there was a burst of dense smoke. Soil fell down and then water gurgled out. Then the water that came out was completely swallowed up by the cracks in the ground that suddenly appeared. The widest crack was several feet wide and bottomless. Many Lan clan brothers fell in. This crack actually extended all the way out as if there was no end to it. The Lan clan occupied a very large area, almost taking up 1/5 of Tianlan City. One must know that Tianlan City was a big city with a population of several million. But this huge explosion instantly razed the entire Lan clan to the ground. The aftershocks even spread out, directly affecting the entire Tianlan City. More than half of the houses collapsed. The entire Tianlan City became a scene of doomsday. The explosion passed. But the surroundings were as quiet as a ghost town. Everyone collectively lost their voices under such tremors. Only that extremely huge mushroom cloud in the sky was still rising slowly, rolling and surging toward the horizon. Lan Buhui stood high up in the sky, bleeding from his 7 orifices. Under such a sudden tremor, he had also temporarily lost his hearing. In fact, his internal organs had even suffered very serious injuries from the tremor. But he didn't treat his injuries. He merely stood high up in the sky, his expression calm and blank, his gaze sorrowful and desolate as he looked down at the chaos below. The Lan clan was gone. Under such a concentrated and cruel blow, the Lan clan had very thoroughly turned into history. Only less than 30 supreme martial artists were able to escape from this huge explosion. Even the current clan leader Lan Yingfeng had also died in this chaos. Even these 30 supreme martial artists who were born were all injured and battered. All of them were dumbfounded like ducks that had been struck by lightning. They weren't mentally prepared at all for something like this to happen to their clan. Never would they have thought that a big clan with tens of thousands of people would be gone just like that. Crack. Plop. Mud and stones continued to fall from the cracks in the ground, and the dust slowly began to dissipate, revealing the terrified and incredulous faces of the crowd. Ah! One of the supreme martial artists suddenly knelt down on the ground and roared towards the sky, "Oh my God! What's going on? What's going on? My grandson, my son, my..." Another supreme martial artist was bleeding from his 7 orifices. He only managed to utter half a word before he fainted. For a moment, the messy Lan clan compound was filled with cries and shouts. As long as one was human, one had roots. With roots there was a sense of belonging. The Lan clan was the root of these people and where they belonged. There were often people who questioned the idea of blind loyalty in ancient times. That was because they didn't understand that under special circumstances, a place that could shelter them from the wind and rain, a place where they could eat hot tea and have family, was the root. It was belonging. As long as a group of people moved in the same direction, you would naturally have a goal in life if you were in the group. This was the joy of life. Now that the Lan clan compound had been destroyed and tens of thousands of people had been annihilated, it was equivalent to taking away the backbone of these people, causing them to lose the direction and goal to move forward. This feeling was really hard to describe. In such a state of mind, even the hatred in their hearts couldn't suppress that feeling of utter despair. That was the feeling of being completely hollowed out from their thoughts to their hearts and souls. It was only after a long while that some of them finally regained their hearing. They kept looking in front of them, looking around in disbelief, as if they still couldn't believe that the home they had spent their whole lives in was gone just like that. Lan Buhui heaved a long sigh in the air, but he spat out a mouthful of blood that he had been suppressing. "Clean up the mess, and wait," Lan Buhui said somewhat despondently. Then with a flash he disappeared. The explosives were too powerful. Mo Tianji's estimation had always been to suppress his own strength and increase the enemy's strength. Therefore, even though he had already tried his best to overestimate the power of the explosives, he still didn't expect that 20,000 kilograms of explosives would actually be so powerful when they exploded together. According to his estimation, 500 kilograms of explosives could destroy a house, 10 kilograms would be able to blow up a small courtyard, 100 kilograms would be able to collapse a small hill, 1,000 kilograms would be able to destroy a large mountain. But there were some things that Mo Tianji couldn't calculate with his current conditions. For example, the power of the explosives. 500 kilograms of explosives was different from 100 kilograms. The power of 2,000 kilograms of explosives and 20,000 kilograms of explosives wasn't as simple as multiplying the power of 2,000 kilograms by 10. In other words, Even if the power of 2,000 kilograms of explosives was multiplied by 100, it definitely wouldn't be as powerful as the power of 20,000 kilograms of explosives exploding together. And it was far inferior. Gu Duxing had just held onto Mo Tianji and held up that strange shield when he felt as if the whole sky was collapsing behind him. He held on with all his might. Both of them channeled all their cultivation into the shield to withstand the violent impact. The powerful impact slammed onto the shield. Then both of them lost consciousness. They only knew how to hold on to the shield and flew out. They didn't know how far they had gone, but in Gu Duxing's blurry consciousness, they had flown over 2 to 3 mountains. With a loud bang, the two of them landed solidly in a forest. Branches and branches flew everywhere at once. Both of them fell from the treetops. By the time they landed on the ground, they were already in a daze. Gu Duxing woke up immediately. The first thing he did was to check on Mo Tianji. He pinched him hard. After a long time, Mo Tianji woke up. He blinked and suddenly sighed. How could it be wrong? I've clearly calculated it a few hundred times. There's no problem at all. Gu Duxing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This guy was actually still thinking about such things at this juncture. He took the shield and saw that the back of the shield had already been burned and smashed into a mess. The shield that was originally thick and heavy was now almost like a cicada's wing. If the explosion had been a little more powerful, this shield would have been destroyed. If that was the case, Gu Duxing and Mo Tianji would inevitably be buried together with the Lan clan. Mo Tianji looked at the shield and gasped. This is a little unexpected. Gu Duxing was speechless. Tianji, you've really gone too far this time. I reckon that this time the whole Tianlan city will be gone. Mo Tianji coughed. There was a hint of embarrassment in his eyes. How did you come up with this thing? Gu Duxing made an explosion gesture, indicating the explosives. Mo Tianji coughed and said, that time when I went to the lower 3 heavens I accidentally heard firecrackers. So it was to welcome guests. Out of curiosity I looked it up and verified the formula. Then I realized that although this thing has long existed in the lower 3 heavens, it's usually used for etiquette, welcoming guests, festive fireworks and so on. Its biggest use is to attack cities. But the effect of attacking cities is not very obvious. I felt that it was a bit of a waste. How can such a powerful thing not be of much use? Mo Tianji coughed. So when I came back that time I started to study it. I changed the formula 7 or 8 times and realized that the power of the explosion could be increased completely. Gu Duxing was flabbergasted. You came up with this thing just like that? Mo Tianji sighed. Yes. Later on, I realized that although this thing is powerful enough, it's not very useful to martial saints, emperors and monarchs. After all, who would be so silly as to stand there and wait for you to blow them up? So I put it down. This time it was to blow up the passageway. That's why I came up with this idea on the spur of the moment. Gu Duxing sighed, speechless. He destroyed one of the great clans with just this idea? How much of this thing do you have left? Gu Duxing took a breath and asked. No more. Mo Tianji spread out his hands. It's been a few years and I've only made this much. And this time I was afraid that it wouldn't be enough, so I used all of it. I really didn't expect that even a shield made of meteoric iron and star mithril would almost fail to block it. Gu Duxing took a deep breath as if he had a toothache. A few years' worth of stockpiled explosives went off just like that. Seeing this kind of power, and thinking about how Mo Tianji had always been carrying this 20,000 kilograms of explosives with him and the others, even with Gu Duxing's current mental fortitude, he couldn't help but feel weak in the calves. Oh my god, if it exploded, then what kind of calamity would there be? Everyone would have to give up. Mo Tianji continued. This shield is the heirloom of Xie Danqiong's clan. I took it to take a look and realized that it can make use of the wind, especially when running with the wind. As long as there's wind behind it, a person can even float with the help of the shield. And it's extremely sturdy. This time, as long as we hold the shield, we can ride the wind and roam the world. And then, we can also take a look at the scenery of the explosion. Gu Duxing's face became distorted. Scenery? Just a little bit more and the two of us would have gone to the palace of the King of Hell to take a look at the scenery. Although Big Brother's nickname is King of Hell Chu, he's not really the King of Hell. Regarding the current situation, Gu Duxing could only rejoice. But he also felt a little guilty in his heart. Tianji, this time we've really gone too far. Gu Duxing said, many innocent people have died. Mo Tianji was silent for a while. A hint of guilt flashed in his eyes. He said quietly, maybe it's too much. But it's also worth it. Gu Duxing sighed. The power of the explosives was completely out of his expectations. He really couldn't blame Imo Tianji for anything. The Lan clan is perverse and tyrannical. Now that they're dead, it can be considered as getting rid of evil for the people. Imo Tianji smiled coldly. Under the oppression of the Lan clan there are also many people here. They're all good men. They'd rather fight to the death. But the reality is that even if they fought to the death, it's useless. This bunch of people, now that they've died here, they should be happy too, right? Perishing together with these scum can be considered to have died a worthy death. Imo Tianji said indifferently, as for those who don't even dare to think of fighting back. Such cowards. What's the difference between being alive and dead? I've had a cold for a few days. I didn't dare to tell everyone because I was afraid that someone would say something about me. Lin Daiyu? Cough, I've sweated a lot today. I feel much better. I'll report this to everyone. Chapter 1348. Gu Duxing disagreed with Imo Tianji's argument. But they are innocent. Imo Tianji said, Duxing? I don't want to kill the innocent. But, since it has happened, I don't regret it. He paused and said, I miscalculated this time. But if I could do it again, I would still do it. There's a saying that goes, those who want to achieve great things don't bother with trifles. Also, the merciful can't command troops. Imo Tianji said indifferently, even if a general succeeds, there will be mountains of corpses. What about reorganizing the entire heaven-level world? You can't lack compassion, but you can't let it overflow. Imo Tianji supported himself and stood up from the ground. Now, I've already wasted time talking so much. It's useless to talk about principles. I'm too lazy to talk to you. If you can move, immediately carry me to a safe place and finish this operation. Gu Duxing snorted and threw the shield away. Imo Tianji's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He caught it and put it into his ring. Wastrel. This is the essence after burning. It can be of great use to the boss, and you just threw it away? Gu Duxing rolled his eyes. With a cold expression, he carried Imo Tianji on his back and gave him 2 hard jabs. Imo Tianji was already in pain all over to begin with. With this jolt, the water in his eyes directly came out. With a contorted face he moaned, just you wait. Gu Duxing snorted and disappeared with Imo Tianji on his back. They used all means to hide their auras. After 2 rounds they arrived at a small house in the mountains. It should have been built by a hunter at some point in time. It had been abandoned for a long time. Imo Tianji had cleaned it up a day earlier. This place was a smokescreen that Imo Tianji had arranged in advance. Even though Imo Tianji was certain that nothing would go wrong, he still arranged such a buffer zone out of habit. In case something unexpected happened, this place could be used as a temporary shelter. They would have a ready-made identity to avoid the enemy's pursuit. It had to be said that Imo Tianji's preparation had played a huge role in this moment. The two entered the house. When Gu Duxing came out again, he had changed into a hunter's attire. His eyes were completely hidden. He looked like an ordinary hunter in the mountains. Originally there were 2 of them. However, Imo Tianji was obviously still unable to move. He could only lie on the bed and pretend to be a patient. Moreover, his face had been blackened by Gu Duxing. For a moment, he sighed with emotion. This kind of role, including the fake corpse lying in the coffin, was prepared for GMO and Luo Kudi. I didn't expect that after preparing for such a long time, it would all be used on me. Just some time after Gu Duxing and Imo Tianji had left that place, there was a burst of dense fog in the night sky. A blue-robed figure broke through the air and shot straight to the place where Gu Duxing and Imo Tianji had once been. It should be here. The newcomer's expression was wooden and bleak. It was Lan Buhui. The old ancestor of one of the great clans was indeed extraordinary. He actually found this place based on the fall of the human body. The most tragic thing about the Lan clan's incident this time was that no one knew what had happened. All those who knew had died. None of them survived. And this knowledge only referred to those who knew that Imo Tianji and Gu Duxing had come to seek shelter. As for the cause and effect of this explosion, there was no one who knew at all. The only thing that the survivors had some impression of was that 2 youths had rushed out from their home. But these 2 people were unfamiliar. Yes, that was all there was. Lan Buhui rose into the air in a hurry and only had time to see countless people being blasted out. He calmed down a little and began to search one by one. But he found quite a few people, all of whom had already become dead. By the time he found the direction where Imo Tianji and Gu Duxing were, it was already the turn of the 30th to 40th person. He fell here, broke tree branches and stayed here. There are blood stains, but he didn't stay here and left. Looking at the traces here, Lan Buhui murmured, if it was someone from the clan who was still alive, he or she would have stayed here for a while. But this person left in a hurry? It shouldn't be him. If it isn't him, then it must be someone who caused the destruction. Murderous intent appeared in Lan Buhui's eyes. This was the first time in several thousand years that Lan Buhui wanted to kill someone. He had painstakingly built up the clan for 10,000 years. Yet, he actually watched helplessly as the clan at its peak was destroyed right in front of his eyes. Turned into a charred land. Lan Buhui's emotions at this moment were completely indescribable. Or perhaps, it was hysterical. A lightning-like glow flashed in his eyes. He carefully looked at the traces around him, including the broken branches, the direction, the sap that flowed out after the tree broke and so on. Then he got to his feet and took a step forward. The direction in which he took this step was exactly the first step that Gu Duxing had taken with Mo Tianji on his back. There was no mistake in the direction of the distance at all. In fact, even the weight was the same. Although Lan Buhui didn't know why there was a strange heavy feeling under the other party's feet, it was a perfect simulation. Then he took the second step. By the time he took the third step, Lan Buhui was already completely certain that these two people were definitely the ones who had caused the huge explosion. Because in just 3 steps, they had already changed directions in 2 different directions. That's not all. These 3 steps even made use of a certain special rhythm, making use of the moment when they brushed past the trees and grass without harming the plants, allowing the plants to take away their scent. Lan Buhui's eyes flickered. What a thief. From then on he became even more cautious with every step. Although his movements were several times slower than Gu Duxing's, he strictly ensured that every step was correct. Gu Duxing didn't leave any footprints or traces at all. But Lan Buhui simply chased after him closely based on a mysterious feeling. This was a good move. It was as if Gu Duxing had left deep footprints and was leading the way. By the time he took the 5th step, Lan Buhui had already retracted all the murderous aura all over him. By the 7th step he had already concealed all his aura. By the 8th step, Lan Buhui's entire person had already melded into heaven and earth. At the moment of the explosion in the Lan clan, Chu Yang was sitting opposite Tan Tan in a very remote inn in the east of the city. Since he had met Tan Tan, everyone naturally had to share good things, and that was Chu Yang's resources including Shuelehan's wine. These were all things that martial artists dreamed of. Although Tan Tan's cultivation technique was very different, he was no exception in terms of spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The moment he saw it, his eyes turned blue right away. Before Chu Yang could even tell him to kill more, this fellow had already pinned Chu Yang down on the bed like a bandit. Give me more. Chu Yang wasn't as strong as him, so he could only ask, how much do you want? Tan Tan asked murderously, what's the standard for this thing? Chu Yang replied, a cup of wine that hasn't been diluted again. About 300 years of cultivation. Tan Tan's eyes darted around as he calculated. A cup of wine with 300 years of cultivation, so a cup is only 3 taels. I want at least, want 1.5 caddies. He calculated that Chu Yang definitely wouldn't have too much of such good stuff. Besides, there were still other brothers waiting to get a share. It was already very impressive of him to ask for 1.5 caddies. He thought to himself, if Chu Yang haggles, I'll pretend to be unwilling and then back off step by step. If I can get half a caddy in the end, it'll be a great victory. Unexpectedly, Chu Yang agreed readily. 1.5 caddies? No problem. Let me get up first. Tan Tan rubbed his hands excitedly and let go of him. Chu Yang didn't go back on his words. He measured 1.5 caddies and gave it to Tan Tan. Tan Tan was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. He held it as if it was a treasure. Even his eyebrows drooped down as he jumped up and down. I knew senior brother was the best. Ah, I now realize that you're also very handsome. You're not as handsome as me. Chu Yang rubbed his shoulders. He curled his lips and said, if you didn't insist, I would have given you 2.5 caddies. But since you're so impolite and only want 1.5 caddies, I'm happy to save it for myself. Ah. Tan Tan opened his mouth wide. His neck stretched out and his eyes bulged out. Great master, you won't, right? Chu Yang remained calm and unruffled. Why wouldn't I? Anyway, it's settled. Tan Tan's complexion immediately turned bitter. Senior brother, itchy? He actually acted coquettishly. Chu Yang shuddered and said, get lost quickly. Xia Danfeng giggled on the side. Tan Tan rolled his eyes and said shamelessly, wife, do it. Chu Yang was stunned. Xia Danfeng had already come over. Big brother Chu. How about 2.5 caddies? She actually shook Chu Yang's arm. Tan Tan shook on the left and Xia Danfeng shook on the right. The husband and wife acted coquettishly together. Chu Yang was completely dizzy. He hurriedly raised his hands. Okay. I surrender. Oh my God, I've really seen it today. There's actually such a husband and wife in this world. And they're actually my junior brother and sister-in-law. Oh my God. Only then was Tan Tan and his wife satisfied. They reached out and put their palms together under Chu Yang's nose. Give it to me. Chu Yang was completely defeated. Since they had something good, they naturally had to consume it immediately to raise their cultivation. That was why Chu Yang and Tan Tan had deliberately found such an extremely remote place. Naturally, they didn't know that Tianlan City had already become a pot of porridge during the day. At night, Chu Yang was fully focused on guarding. Beside him were Tan Tan and Xia Danfeng. Tan Tan had already finished his cultivation and was currently circulating his energy to help Xia Danfeng digest the medicinal effects. Speaking of which, Chu Yang was also very speechless. When others drank this wine, they hurriedly raised their cultivation. When Xia Danfeng drank this wine, her first reaction was to get drunk. Chu Yang was directly speechless to the extreme. Behind him, Tan Tan's long exhalation could be heard. He said, "It's finally done. This little girl has to drink more, to strengthen her foundation." Tan Tan only drank 2 cups, but he continuously fed Xia Danfeng 1.5 liters. This fellow doted on his wife, but he let Xia Danfeng get drunk. She actually spat out the last cup. If others saw that this peerless treasure, which martial artists might not even be able to smell for thousands of years, was wasted so much, they would probably cry on the spot. But Master Tan's expression didn't change. Master Chu was similarly unmoved. This was the composure of the 2 brothers. It could really be said to be unprecedented. *** Under the planning of the administrators and the deputy moderators, the spectacular World Pride Cup book review competition has begun. Talents from all walks of life, quickly come and show your skills. The prize for this book review competition is generous. It's fair to all and the talented will win. Let's see who's the hero in the Kangmang continent. Chapter 1349. Xia Danfeng finally stood up. She stretched her arms and kicked her legs. Then she became excited. She hugged Tan Tan. She laughed and jumped. "Tan Tan, you're so good. My cultivation has jumped 7 or 8 levels. Tan Tan smiled crookedly. He patted his chest. "It's okay. Leave it to me. It's just a small matter if you want to improve," Xia Danfeng cheered. The husband and wife hugged each other. Chu Yang sat on one side with black lines on his face. He suddenly felt uncomfortable in his heart. "These are all my resources, okay? How did it all become Tan Tan's contribution? Moreover, this guy shamelessly took all the responsibility. How can you have such a good thing?" He couldn't help but say, "I say, Danfeng, this matter doesn't seem to have anything to do with Tan Tan." Xia Danfeng turned her head. Cough, cough. "I say, senior brother Chu, you're my uncle. I'm your sister-in-law. If I hug you and kiss you, would you be able to take it?" Tan Tan nodded fiercely. He said disdainfully, "How can you be an elder? You even want to take advantage of your sister-in-law? Public morals are degenerating day by day." Chu Yang felt dizzy. He was tongue-tied and couldn't say anything. "Who asked you to hug me and kiss me? Moreover, when did I want to take advantage of my sister-in-law? Isn't this He Tian's injustice? I'm not?" Chu Yang's face darkened as he looked at the husband and wife hugging each other. He thought, whose public morals are degenerating day by day? You should have a conscience when you speak. Chu Yang complained weakly. "Isn't it your duty as the eldest brother-in-law to give some benefits to your brother's wife? How can you be so calculative? You even want a favor." Tan Tan curled his lips and said, "I've never seen someone like you." Chu Yang held his forehead and remained silent. "Okay, I admit defeat." Then he heard Xia Danfeng cheer, "Tan Tan, you look so handsome when you curl your lips." "Really?" Tan Tan was in high spirits. He was overflowing with interest. "How handsome? In any case, you're handsome. Then I have to curl my lips. But I can't curl my lips in front of my wife. I can despise anyone, but I can't despise my wife." Tan Tan was very melancholy. But he rolled his eyes and suddenly found a target. So he started to talk non-stop. "I've never seen someone like you, humph. You're really stingy and you still want to be my senior brother? I don't even mind scolding you, humph." Chu Yang couldn't bear it any longer. He flashed Meng Chao Rant's command medallion in his left hand. Then he threw a punch with his right hand. "I'll make you handsome. I'll show you how handsome you are. In the name of your master, I order you to withdraw your protective key." This beating was truly satisfying. Tan Tan was ordered not to resist, and not to use his vital energy to protect his body. In just a few punches, his face was swollen like a pig's head. Tears flowed down his cheeks. "You're too cruel." At this moment, the ground beneath his feet suddenly trembled. The three of them were stunned at the same time. What was going on? Then, a strong vibration came from beneath his feet. The three of them were caught off guard. So, they sat down on the ground in a daze. Then, a loud explosion was heard. The three of them felt as if their eardrums were going to explode. The place they were standing on shook fiercely like an earthquake. The room of the inn fell to the east and then fell back to the west. The three of them were thrown to the east and then to the west. Only then did they regain their composure. They stabilized their bodies in the middle of the room. Tan Tan said in a daze, "Earthquake?" His voice hadn't faded when the inn collapsed with a loud bang. At this moment, it was fully revealed that Chu Yang and Tan Tan were from the same master. The two of them said the same thing at the same time. "Tan Tan, you hold on. I'll cover you." "Chu Yang, you hold on. I'll cover you." It was chaos. Tan Tan pulled Xia Danfeng into his arms. Then he leaned over and covered his wife. He activated his divine power with a hey sound. The roof of the inn that had collapsed was sent flying. Then the two of them flew out. The ground under their feet was still shaking. Even the ground on the street was bouncing like beans being fried. The sky was filled with smoke and dust. Suddenly, a sky full of apples flew up. It was a street stall. The apples all bounced up. Tan Tan grabbed one in each hand. He took a bite. "Tastes pretty good." He stuffed it into Xia Danfeng's hands. What happened? The two of them calmed down in an instant. Tan Tan carried Xia Danfeng. Chu Yang followed closely behind. The three of them shot up into the sky. Looking around, they saw that Tianlan City was in chaos. More than half of the houses in the city had collapsed. The inn that the three of them were staying in was the most remote. It wasn't very affected. The surrounding houses stopped shaking after a few times, but this inn had collapsed. Regarding this, the three of them were speechless. Why didn't the other houses collapse, but the one we're staying in collapsed? Tan Tan was actually struggling with this question at this moment. Xia Danfeng rolled her eyes at him. She shrank into his arms and said, "Is this hard to guess? The other houses aren't inns." What happened to the inn? Tan Tan was surprised. Then realization dawned on him. "I see." Chu Yang asked humbly, "What's the reason?" Of course, he knew that this inn had been in disrepair for a long time. Besides, the structure of an inn was fundamentally different from a house. But he wanted to hear Tan Tan's opinion. "There are many people in the inn. There are many people staying here." Tan Tan explained confidently. "There are people doing that every day. The foundation has long been loose. It would be strange if it didn't collapse after a quake." Chu Yang was dumbfounded. There was such a strange reason? Xia Danfeng moaned and shrank her face into Tan Tan's arms. She was so embarrassed that she didn't dare to raise her head. She twisted and twisted Tan Tan's body with one hand. Tan Tan shivered in the air. He sucked in cold air and grimaced. In this world, it's a crime to speak the truth. The quake below subsided slightly. Chu Yang really didn't want to be alone with this guy. If this went on, he would definitely suffer internal injuries. He said, "Let's go over and take a look." He flew away first. Tan Tan and Xia Dan followed closely behind. They sped all the way to the site of the explosion. The two brothers were dumbfounded. This seems to be the Lan clan's place. Tan Tan's mouth was wide open. But now, where did the Lan clan go? Chu Yang looked at the debris in front of him. There was a huge pit, a wide expanse of flat land, and that huge crack. He smacked his lips and said, "They should have gone up." Tan Tan nodded solemnly. "Looks like they went up. But who let them go up like this? This person is really generous. What a guy to destroy half the city at once. Even I am somewhat impressed." Chu Yang frowned. He was also thinking about this problem, but he already had a vague idea. It should be the brothers who came up, right? He remembered that he once saw Mo Tianji secretly experimenting with fireworks or something. He said that he wanted to make a formula and a weapon. When he connected the dots, he immediately had a rough idea. This was most likely Mo Tianji's doing. It was just that, with such a big commotion, were the brothers okay? Instantly, Chu Yang started to worry. Right at this moment, a voice came from the smoke above his head. "Clean up the mess and wait." Then, his divine consciousness sensed a person leaving in the sky. Chu Yang and Tan Tan exchanged a look. Tan Tan said telepathically, "This person is the elder master of the Lan clan Lan Buhui. At the very least, his cultivation is at least second-grade supreme martial artist." Chu Yang nodded solemnly, his eyes shining. Mo Tianji lay on the bed, dressed like a hunter. There was even a green cloth wrapped around his head. Gu Duxing was chopping firewood outside. From here, the two of them looked like two very pure hunter brothers. Mo Tianji calculated in his heart. He should be able to hide here. Ordinary people wouldn't track him here either. But if they came after him, Xie Danxiong and the others were currently hiding in the city. Without his orders, they probably wouldn't come out. Ao Shiyun was experienced and prudent, holding back the two clowns, GMO and Luo Kadi. Nothing would happen, so the other side could rest assured. At the moment, the biggest danger was him and Gu Duxing. Mo Tianji's mind spun rapidly. After a long time he sighed. "I finally understand what it means to make one wrong move and then all the steps will be wrong. It's just because I misjudged the power of the explosives. Because of that, I got injured. Because of that, I couldn't go far. I can only stay here temporarily." But staying here temporarily, although they had made preparations in advance, was much more dangerous. If they had followed the original plan, the two of them would have returned to the chaotic Tianlan city by now and disappeared without a trace in a single turn. But they had been sent flying too far. If they wanted to go back, they would only attract more attention. So they could only come here by mistake. "Duxing," Mo Tianji called. Gu Duxing answered and entered. "What's the matter?" "I'm afraid it's not safe here." Mo Tianji said, "Unless no one comes after us. And with your whereabouts, we have absolute confidence that we won't be tracked. But there's always a what if. Once someone comes after us, it must be a peerless expert using a method that you and I don't understand. If there really is such an enemy, you and I won't be able to fight against them." Gu Duxing grunted with a solemn face. "So we can't stay here for long." Mo Tianji was deep in thought. "It's better for us to leave as soon as possible. If we leave, we'll go back the way we came. Enter the ruins of the Lan clan and take advantage of the chaos to go back. This is the safest route for now. If we didn't have the route here this time, entering the Lan clan directly would of course be a huge risk. But after this, it's actually the safest place." Gu Duxing frowned slightly. "Tianji, I think you're too prepared for a rainy day. You're not suitable to move in your current state. It's already very safe for us to stay here for the time being. Even if someone comes looking for us, we'll be able to disguise ourselves. I'm not blindly preparing for a rainy day. I'm afraid it's too late to leave now." Mo Tianji said worriedly, "If they use a method that you and I don't understand to find us, I'm afraid the disguise will only be a joke." He paused for a moment and said, "Duxing, don't underestimate the big clans. For the big clans to be able to establish themselves in troubled times and pass down their legacy for tens of thousands of years, they definitely have a lot of amazing talents. At the moment they're just rotten. So they look very easy to deal with. Moreover, the existence of the big clans in itself is a kind of powerful constraint to them. But the moment they wake up from their glory of tens of thousands of years and return to their iron-blooded style, every one of these big clans will be a powerful enemy. Therefore, before they wake up, we must use thunderous means to completely destroy them in one go. Not giving them a chance to react is the way to go." Just as Mo Tianji was speaking, outside, a blue figure had already drifted closer without a sound. He stood outside the window of the wooden house. There was a strange expression on his face. It was Lan Buhui. "I'll write this chapter first. I'll go for the infusion. Today is the last day of the cold infusion. If I come back early, I'll write another chapter. If I come back late, then I'll write this chapter." Chapter 1350. Gu Duxing was rather disapproving of Mo Tianji's excessive caution. He said, "You worry too much. In my opinion, although the big clans are powerful, they may not be much. The so-called 10,000 years of accumulation is nothing but a joke." He smiled coldly and said, "Of course there are many experts, but, based on the current situation, it's just that we lack some time. At least they haven't seen through your scheme." Mo Tianji's face darkened, real worry in his eyes. He forced himself to get up and said seriously to Gu Duxing, "Second brother Gu, your way of thinking is very dangerous. You are an important person to us brothers. If you also underestimate the enemy like this, the consequences will be unimaginable." Gu Duxing said coldly, Back then in the lower three heavens, eldest brother and his sword alone were unparalleled. In the lower three heavens, we also started from nothing and gradually grew stronger. In the upper three heavens, we have already successfully taken the first step. 10,000 years of heritage has already been destroyed in a day. Mo Qingji interrupted, do you know why it was so easy? Gu Duxing said indifferently, the Tribulation Sword Master only appears once every 10,000 years. All the big clans know this. They shouldn't have been unprepared, but when it came to it, they still couldn't bear it. How do you expect me to think highly of them? Mo Qingji sighed heavily, his eyes looking above him. After a long while he said, Duxing, let me tell you about the big clans. I will help you adjust your way of thinking first. Otherwise, if you continue like this, sooner or later, you will make a rash decision and send all our brothers to their deaths. Gu Duxing said coldly, go on. Outside, Lan Buhui was about to make a move, but when he heard Mo Qingji's words, he couldn't help but stop. From the conversation between these two, he could tell that one of them was probably Tribulation's think tank, while the other was the Sword's Edge, right? He was very sharp and domineering. Lan Buhui didn't care about anyone else's opinion, not even Tribulation Sword Masters. However, he had to listen and care about the opinions and comments of Tribulation's think tank about the big clans. The think tanks of all the Tribulation Sword generations. No matter which one it was, they were all figures who could destroy the world with their bare hands and turn the world around from nothing. These think tanks, no matter which one it was, if they were used to fight for hegemony and settle the world, it would be a waste of talent. He was truly a heaven-sent genius. Right now, although the Lan clan was annihilated, there were still people in the lower three heavens. There were still more than 30 supreme martial artists alive. There were also the clansmen who were sent to the northwest. There were still 70 supreme martial artists. With this kind of power, even if they lost their base, they could still make a comeback at any time. Mo Qingji's comments, especially at a time like this, were extremely important. Mo Tianji was silent for a moment. He asked, how long have we been here? Gu Duxing said, it's already midnight. It's already dawn now. The sky outside the window is already starting to brighten. Mo Tianji was silent. Then he suddenly smiled and said, since Senior has already come, I'll take a look at you. Why bother standing outside? Wind, frost, and dew were heavy, how could it not be hard? Would you like to come in for a chat? As for the grudges and enmity between us, there's no harm in making a decision after we've discussed it. Gu Duxing got up in fright and stood with his hand on his sword. Could it be that the enemy has really chased after us? That shouldn't be possible, right? With my cultivation base, I should be able to escape. Even Chu Yang may not be able to keep up with me. Outside, Lan Buhui was also taken aback. He discovered me? How did he discover me? With his insignificant cultivation and his current injuries, how could he have discovered me? Was he trying to trick me? Lan Buhui was certain at once. It was definitely a trick. Stay calm and don't move. I've become one with the universe now. Even if you come out right in front of me, you won't be able to see me. How could you sense me? Lan Buhui had absolute confidence in this. Hearing that, Mo Qingji shook his head and smiled rather speechlessly. Looks like Elder isn't going to give me face. Are you afraid that I'm trying to trick you? He said quietly. When Elder arrived, there was no sound at all. The wind didn't blow and the birds didn't startle. Indeed, no one noticed your arrival. I couldn't sense it either. However, Elder should know that there's a feeling called warning signs. Lan Buhui's heart skipped a beat. Yes, there was indeed such a feeling. Often, one's heart would suddenly palpitate when one wasn't aware of it. When that happened, it meant that something bad was about to happen or was happening, or that danger had already come or was coming. This was pretty good. There's also a secret technique called Heavenly Secrets. Mo Qingji said dispassionately, so I'm sure that you're outside right now. He said somewhat mockingly, if Elder insists on not coming out, then just take it that my trick has failed. Since you're already here, it doesn't matter whether you appear or not. Gu Duxing kept his eyes fixed on the door, fearing that he would miss something. However, he still didn't notice anything. However, Mo Tianji had said it with a card up his sleeve. There was even a hint of mockery in his expression. Just as Mo Qingji finished speaking, he saw a flash of blue robes in front of the door. A man in blue quietly appeared. Standing in the courtyard that was illuminated by the pine forest, his expression was bleak and desolate. Although he was here, he gave off the feeling that he didn't belong to this world. It was Lan Buhui. Lan Buhui sighed and said, as expected of the mastermind of tribulation. You're indeed a young hero. The moment he appeared, a jolt went through Gu Duxing. He finally understood that Mo Qingji wasn't shooting at random, neither was he overly cautious. A hint of darkness also flashed across Mo Qingji's eyes. Lan Buhui's eyes flashed. Suddenly he stomped his feet inside. So I've been tricked after all. You didn't notice me at all. Mo Qingji smiled dispassionately. Elder's guess is right. I was indeed tricking you. Lan Buhui asked, what would you have done if I hadn't come out? Mo Qingji shook his head lightly. As long as you're here you'll definitely come out. If you don't, it means that you're not here. In that case I'll leave this place immediately with him and go far away. Lan Buhui looked up at the sky. After a moment of silence he said, that's right. You first mentioned the fundamental weakness of the big clans, yet you stopped at the most critical moment. You aroused my strong interest and then suddenly started to trick me at such a time. If I were here I would definitely come out. Even if I knew that you were tricking me I would still come out. Therefore I had no choice but to fall into your trap. Lan Buhui said dispassionately, because I already have a request in my heart. Exactly. Mo Qingji propped himself up. Removing his disguise he sat up. He said softly, unfortunately, you were just one step too late. If we had left immediately when I told Duxing to leave this place, Elder, you would have missed me as well. Lan Buhui nodded and said, when I came you were already talking about the big clans. Indeed, I didn't hear you say anything about leaving. If you had left at that time, even if I could have caught up to you, it would have taken a lot of effort. I'm afraid it'll take a lot of effort. Mo Qingji was silent for a moment. Then he said dispassionately, if I wanted to leave again, you wouldn't have caught up to me. Lan Buhui was silent for a long time. Finally he sighed. That's right. If you had turned back, I wouldn't have been able to catch up to you. At that time I wouldn't have turned back at all. The sword at Gu Duxing's waist suddenly vibrated violently. Although he was still standing upright like a javelin, unsheathed and unstoppable, there was a look of agony in his eyes. As it turned out, Tianji was right. He had arranged everything. All I had to do was follow his instructions completely. Even if there was danger, I would be able to avert it. But because of my arrogance and a little dissatisfaction with Tianji's prudence, I delayed taking that little bit of time. This expert in front of me only heard that the big clans were not to be underestimated. Before that, Mo Qingji had already said that he would leave. After thinking about it, he even retorted a few words. It was just that little bit of time, but it was enough to determine life and death. Gu Duxing sighed softly. No wonder. Although that period of time was short, he was carrying Mo Qingji. But it was enough to cover more than 10 miles. In fact, dozens of miles. How could the enemy catch up to him? But now it was too late for regrets. Mo Qingji smiled, his expression calm and tranquil. He said, if I'm not wrong, Elder must be the founder of the Lan clan? Lan Buhui's eyes shone with a strange light. That's right. Good judgment. Mo Qingji smiled. After the shocking explosion, there are probably not many people in the Lan clan who can quickly calm down and chase after us here, right? Lan Buhui admitted, not many. Mo Qingji was silent for a moment. In a disappointed tone he said, since you're the founder of the Lan clan, then you're one of the tribulations of the previous generation? Given Mo Qingji's age, it was indeed a little inappropriate for him to say this to the 10,000-year-old Lan Buhui. But now that Mo Qingji had said it, the three of them felt that it was only right and proper. Because Lan Buhui's father was one of the tribulations of the previous generation. And the two people in front of him right now were two of the current tribulations. Lan Buhui's eyes shone with adoration. In a deep voice he said respectfully, yes, my father is Lan Tingxue. At this moment Lan Buhui showed absolute respect. It wasn't respect for these two young men, but for the word, tribulation. Because his father had once been a tribulation. Mo Qingji was silent for a moment. Then he said softly, if I'm lucky enough to survive, then my son will also establish a new great clan, and become the founder of the ruling clan. Lan Buhui replied respectfully, yes. Mo Qingji shook his head and sighed with a smile. May I know your name? Lan Buhui replied, Lan Buhui. Buhui. Mo Qingji thought for a moment in a daze. Then he praised, good name. Presumably, when your father named you, he wanted his son to not do anything he would regret in his life, to not have any regrets in his life. No. A strange light shone in Lan Buhui's eyes. He said slowly, my father gave me this name, but it's referring to his own life. My father's life was filled with bloodshed and countless battles in the martial world. There were countless hardships and near-death experiences, but he never regretted his actions in his life. For his tribulation he never regretted it. For him and his brothers he never regretted it. When my father left home for the last time, he specially came to talk to me. He said, "I have no regrets in this life and neither should you," Lan Buhui said softly. His father's mighty figure seemed to appear before his eyes again. His voice also became warm and gentle, filled with memories. Mo Tianji was silent for a moment. Then he suddenly asked, "In that case, have you managed to not have any regrets in your life?" Lan Buhui shuddered violently and looked up abruptly. Mo Tianji smiled. "In the 10,000 years of the Lan clan, do you have any regrets?" Lan Buhui stared wide-eyed at this young man who was a good 10,000 years younger than him. For a moment he was actually rather tongue-tied. He felt sweat dripping down his back. No regrets. Chapter 1351. Do you have any regrets in the 10,000 years of the Lan clan? Lan Buhui was stunned. 10,000 years of time passed by just like that. For a moment he was actually stunned. After a long while, Lan Buhui sighed and said, "Who in this world can have no regrets?" Mo Tianji said dispassionately, "Your father has no regrets." Lan Buhui was stunned again. He nodded slowly. "Yes, he has no regrets. I'm not as good as him." Mo Tianji said dispassionately, "I have no regrets too." Lan Buhui slowly pulled himself out of his memories. Looking at Mo Tianji, his gaze gradually became sharp and fierce. He said softly, "You created an earth-shattering explosion single-handedly that killed 50,000 people. You have no regrets?" Mo Tianji laughed mockingly. "Don't tell me you don't think so? Don't tell me you think that your family members don't deserve to die?" Lan Buhui's expression was steely. Mo Tianji took a breath and took out a thick booklet. Flipping it open, he read aloud, "The Lan clan has done evil for 10,000 years, oppressing and harming the world, for their crimes. 8,000 years ago the Lan clan wanted to expand. Second Grandmaster Lan Muxue gave the order to uproot another clan, the Chao clan. That night, all 30,000 members of the Chao clan were wiped out. The Lan clan then took over this place and built a lot of buildings. This became the outer courtyard and garden of the Lan clan. 7,100 years ago, the Lan clan tried to steal a bride and was injured by the Du clan. That night, all 5,000 members of the Du clan were killed and the daughter of the Du clan went missing. After that, the body of a lowly concubine was found in the Lan clan's public quarters. It was suspected to be the daughter of the Du clan, Du Mufeng. 3,330 years ago, there was a plague outside Tianlan City. Hundreds died. The Lan clan sent experts to slaughter all the people and animals within a 3,000-mile radius of Tianlan City. Half of Tianlan City was also wiped out and over 1.3 million corpses were burned. The flames soared into the sky. At this point, Mo Tianji closed the booklet and said dispassionately, "A plague. It has existed since ancient times. But to kill more than 1.3 million people for the sake of a plague that infected just a few hundred people. Your Lan clan is unique. There is no other clan like you." Lan Buhui took a deep breath, pain in his eyes. 700 years ago, the Shen clan, a vassal clan of the Lan clan, did not pay taxes on time and delayed for 3 days. On the 4th day, 800 people of the Shen clan died an unnatural death. The guards of the Shen clan disappeared overnight. 15 years ago, 10,000 people died an unnatural death. 3 years ago, Mo Tianji's voice was very calm as he slowly recited. His voice was flat from beginning to end. However, each and every one of them was dripping with blood. All of them were too numerous to record. As Mo Tianji read out each word, Lan Buhui's countenance slowly changed. From calm and composed, it slowly turned a little red. Slowly, his face became expressionless like steel. Mo Tianji patted his hand lightly with the small booklet and said indifferently, "Lord Elder Ancestor of the Lan clan, perhaps you still think that none of this has happened? Right now, the Lan clan has more than 100,000 people, occupying 1/5 of Tianlan City. As for Tianlan City, it was a large city with a population of several million. The tyranny of the Lan clan is evident. The surroundings of the Lan clan were all congregated by the major clans. Naturally, they became the Lan clan's natural defense line. What's wrong with killing them all together?" Mo Tianji said coldly, "This is enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. Lan Buhui's eyes shone with eagle-like light. Where did you get all this information from? Mo Qinji said, there are some people in the heavens who have taken on important missions. That is the great records of the heavens. They have recorded all the history of the heavens since ancient times. And these are merely the parts of the Lan clan that were found from them. Lan Buhui nodded slowly. Good. Mo Qinji's eyes were full of mockery. Good. Lan Buhui was silent. These are your reasons for dealing with the Lan clan? Mo Qinji straightened his back and said coldly, isn't that enough? Lan Buhui took a deep breath but couldn't say anything. Mo Qinji said coldly, back then when your father destroyed the major clans, he also used the same reason. Lan Buhui said hoarsely, this reason is enough but I still want to kill you. Mo Qinji sneered. Even if you don't kill me, I will kill you. Do you think that this blood debt has nothing to do with you at all? If not for your connivance, would this have happened? A second-grade supreme martial artist's divine consciousness can cover the entire Tianlan city. As a second-grade supreme martial artist, what is going on in this city that you don't know? What have you done? Lan Buhui's expression didn't change. He said dispassionately, you don't understand. You really don't. Before you become a major clan, perhaps you won't understand. Mo Qinji sneered. The two of them looked at each other, neither giving in. Although Mo Qinji was at an absolute disadvantage, the look in his eyes right now was full of arrogance and loftiness. Like a judge looking at a criminal. No matter how powerful the criminal was in front of a judge, he was just a prisoner waiting to be slaughtered. After a long while, Lan Buhui finally shifted his gaze dispassionately. He said, you mentioned the major clan's weakness just now. Now, I'll give you a chance to linger on and finish what you want to say. Mo Qinji said dispassionately, I'm very tired and injured. I don't have the energy to speak. Lan Buhui said, you should understand that your life now is in my hands. Mo Qinji smiled. Yes, but you should also understand that whether I say what I want to say or not is also in my hands. Lan Buhui smiled. I can choose not to listen. Mo Qinji also smiled. He said word by word, I can also die. The two of them exchanged a look, discovering the smile in each other's eyes at the same time. Lan Buhui heaved a long sigh. Talent? What a pity. Let me explain to you. When I was in seclusion, I knew what they were doing, but I didn't stop them. Once a general succeeds, there will be mountains of corpses. Even the establishment of a country will cost millions of souls. What more, a great clan that rules the heavens. As for today, the Lan clan has been destroyed. Just as you said, you are enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. You have a clear conscience. I admit. According to the secular world, it's time to clean up a clan like this. But as their ancestor, I have to. Yet I have to avenge them. You killed them in the name of reason. My revenge is in the name of reason. Reason and reason can't be both in the past and the present. Lan Buhui took a deep breath. I hope you can understand. Mo Qinji was silent for a moment. His brows raised as if he wanted to refute. But in the end he still said dispassionately, I understand you. You really did. After all, in this world, those who could put righteousness before family were still as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. Such people. They were either saints or fools. And Mo Qinji admitted that he was neither a saint nor a fool. Putting themselves in his shoes. If he were in Lan Buhui's current situation, even if he knew that his family was in the wrong, he would still seek revenge. Lan Buhui said, thank you for your understanding. Mo Qinji turned to Gu Duxing. Do you have the medicine that boss gave you with you? Give me one, I need to recover my energy. Gu Duxing nodded. I only kept one. I gave the rest to GMO and Luo Kadi. Mo Qinji was stunned. I gave them mine too. The two brothers exchanged a look and smiled bitterly. In the hearts of the brothers, GMO and Luo Kadi seemed to be the ones who got injured more often, getting into bloody fights at every turn. Gu Duxing took out the elixir. Mo Qinji took it and swallowed it. Throughout the whole process, Lan Buhui didn't stop him. In his opinion, even if the two people in front of him fully recovered, they wouldn't be that strong. He could kill them with a casual flip of his hand. What did it matter if their injuries recovered or not? Although Gu Duxing always carried the incomplete version of the heavy elixir with him, but, unless it was an emergency, he definitely couldn't bear to use it. After all, an incomplete version of the heavy elixir was equivalent to a life. Who would bear to use it unless it was the last moment? Once it was used, the next time they really encountered a life-and-death situation. there wouldn't be a chance. After swallowing the incomplete version of the heavy elixir, Mo Tianji's complexion improved at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then he got down from the bed. Standing on the ground, he took 2 slow steps and said with a smile, "Boss's medicine is indeed useful." Then he said to Lan Buhui, "Elder Lan, since you want to talk, please take a seat." Laughing, Lan Buhui sat down opposite him. Mo Tianji turned to Gu Duxing and said, "Second brother Gu, after this talk, it will be a life and death battle. I have no confidence in being able to escape, and you also only have a tiny bit of hope. Therefore, if you have confidence in being able to escape, then leave quickly. Don't hesitate at all." Gu Duxing took a breath and said resolutely, "This time it's my carelessness that has harmed us. Let's die together. We are brothers in life and brothers in death. Do you think that I, Gu Duxing, have done something wrong and only let my brothers pay the price while I run for my life?" Mo Tianji said dispassionately, "Our identities have already been exposed. Boss and the brothers are equally in danger. If you can't escape, your mistake will never be able to be made up for. If you still remember that it was your carelessness and underestimation of the enemy that caused my death this time, then you have to be careful in the future. Don't let our brothers die for the same reason again." Mo Tianji spoke of his own life and death, but it was as if he was talking about an outsider. His tone was very calm. Gu Duxing gritted his teeth. Tears welled up in his eyes and he swallowed heavily. His tears were already on the verge of flowing out, but he forced them to evaporate in his eyes. He didn't want anyone to see his weakness, especially when there was an enemy in front of him. The lives of Boss and the brothers will depend on whether you can escape or not. Mo Tianji reiterated once again, "If you really want to die here just for the sake of our brotherhood, just for the sake of your guilt toward me, then I have nothing more to say." After saying that, he turned around and said to Lan Buhui with a smile, "Elder, you must be joking." Lan Buhui said amiably, "It's fine. If you can let me know the real drawbacks of the big clans, I will let you and your brothers die a little more painlessly." He smiled dispassionately. "Although you have been stalling for time right from the start, I didn't stop you. If all tribulations were like the 2 of you, then even if all of you came here together today, this old man has absolute confidence that he would die together with you." Mo Tianji smiled. "Since that's the case, let's have a life and death talk." Someone in the book review said that at the moment of explosion, all dangers would be averted. I laughed. Without Chiang by his side, do you think that Mo Tianji would waste a heavy pill when he has absolute confidence in escaping? Chapter 1352. With a slight smile, Lan Buhui said, "Since that's the case, I'll ask you for a favor first. If you go down there and see my father, please greet him. Say hello to him." A look of adoration appeared in his eyes. He said softly, "He left home when I was just 20 years old and never came back. I miss him a lot, a lot." He said, "As a robber, if you have a spirit after you die, you will definitely see him." Mo Tianji smiled lightly. "I'm just afraid that after I tell him, he will be very disappointed in you. That wouldn't be pretty." Lan Buhui said dispassionately, "If he can come to my dream to teach me a lesson, then what harm is there in killing everyone in the world?" He looked at Mo Tianji and suddenly asked, "Do you have a father? Is your father still alive?" Mo Tianji was taken aback. Nostalgia suddenly appeared in his eyes. His father, Mo Tianji's father, Mo Xingqian, was also a figure. But before this, Mo Tianji didn't think much of it. Besides, he was dissatisfied with many of his father's methods. Mo Xingqian was a little snobbish and a little Philistine. When it came to character and integrity, he didn't have much. Mo Tianji's feelings toward his father were neither reverence nor respect nor contempt. In short, it was very complicated. Especially after he grew up, as his wisdom and experience slowly increased, he also became even more. But now that he thought about it, he only thought about how his father took care of him and protected him when he was a child. Thinking about that middle-aged man who lifted him on his shoulder when he was a child only to have his neck covered in urine, he couldn't help but smile. "I'm luckier than you." Lan Buhui chuckled. "You have a father. How would you know the pain of a child who lost his own father at a young age?" Mo Tianji pondered and said, "If I really die today, I'll help you send away your longing." "Thank you." Lan Buhui nodded and smiled. "To express my gratitude, I'll treat you to tea today." As he spoke, he waved his hand. The spiritual energy in the air suddenly rolled and surged, forming a teapot out of thin air in an instant. 3 teacups. He took out a cup of tea, the most ordinary green tea, and put it into the teapot. Once again the spiritual energy turned into water. After pouring it into the teapot it started to boil. I know these things. I don't care whether the tea is good or not, or whether the wine is good or not. I've never cared and have never been particular about it. As Lan Buhui busied himself he said, "So, I've neglected you?" Amo Tianji smiled. It was indeed a little negligent. However, I'll forgive you this time. Lan Buhui shook his head and laughed. There is a difference of 10,000 years between our ages. But now I'm treating you as an equal or even half an elder. Amo Tianji pondered for a moment and said, I understand. Lan Buhui said, thank you for your understanding. That's why I'll make a move on you later. I'll be gentle. Amo Tianji smiled. Thank you. Lan Buhui chuckled. The tea was already boiling and wisps of tea fragrance filled the air. He picked up the teapot and poured tea for the two of them. The steam and the aroma of the tea rose in spirals, forming a thin mist in front of the three. It seemed to cover their faces and eyes. Duxing, in order to avoid Senior Lan's misgivings, you should just play along. If we sit side by side, I'm afraid Senior Lan is really afraid that we'll run away. Amo Tianji said. Gu Duxing didn't say anything and just sat down at the side. This was exactly what Lan Buhui had in mind. If the two tribulations were to sit together, then there would indeed be countless ways or means for them to pass messages and discuss things. Even a mid-level supreme martial artist like himself might not be able to detect those little tricks. Now that the two of them were sitting separately, it was exactly what he wanted. However, he said, you're worrying too much. Amo Tianji smiled slightly. The position of the three of them now was that Amo Tianji was in the main seat, facing south with his back to the north, facing the door. Lan Buhui sat directly opposite him with his back to the door. Gu Duxing sat on the east, facing the west. He sat between the two of them. In front of the three of them was the table. Lan Buhui thought about it for a long time. This position was the most advantageous for him. Even if there were enemies behind him, he could totally react. If the two of them wanted to escape, they definitely couldn't pass through the door. But if they were to break through the wall, not to mention whether he would give them the chance to do so, even if they did, when they broke through the wall, there would still be some slight hindrance. But he would have enough time to react 3 times in such a short period of time. Therefore Lan Buhui was relieved. Big clans are very powerful. This time, Amo Tianji didn't wait for Lan Buhui to urge him. He took the initiative to speak. His voice was deep and slow with a kind of intimidating power. Even at this moment his attitude was still, as if he had the world in his hands and the world in his heart. As if he was talking about the world with his friends and family, discussing heroes with his brothers, and not in a moment of life and death. Big clans have a legacy of 10,000 years. In every generation there are amazing and outstanding people born. Therefore they become more and more powerful. A clan that can have a legacy of hundreds of millions of years, be it in terms of foundation, martial power or wisdom, is no small matter. Otherwise, without the Tribulation Sword Master, they would have long been destroyed in the hands of others. Therefore, no matter how careful one is when dealing with a clan like this, it's never too much to be cautious. Even if it's a small steward or a small attendant in a big clan, as long as it's an official position, it cannot be underestimated. Without the corresponding ability, there's no way one can sit in that position. Amo Tianji went on tirelessly. Lan Buhui was taken aback. He turned and glanced at Gu Duxing, deep in thought. Then he shook his head and smiled lightly, not stopping Amo Tianji from speaking. Gu Duxing felt as if a knife was being twisted in his heart. Nevertheless, he sat up straight and listened attentively. He knew that Amo Tianji had already reached such a stage. These words were not meant for Lan Buhui but for himself. It had pinned all its hopes on the slim hope that it would be able to escape. If Amo Tianji were to die today, then this would be his final plan as tribulation. In big clans, the further one goes, the more peculiar a phenomenon appears. The younger the generation, the faster it seems, will advance in their cultivation compared to the older generation. Even with the same aptitude, the older generation may need 35 years to reach the martial emperor level, but the younger generation may only need 25 years. Therefore, it gives people the misconception that the so-called seniors aren't all that amazing, but the younger generation is stronger than their ancestors. However, this statement is completely wrong. Like Elder Lan Buhui, it should be true that time has worn him down. But the younger generation is different. As the saying goes, the older generation plants the tree, while the younger generation enjoys the shade. When the first generation has a foundation, the second generation will be faster. When the second generation has accumulated more, the third generation will be even faster. And then, as each generation becomes faster and stronger than the previous, all the resources will increase. The seniors can only research and develop a path for their entire lives, but the younger generation can pass through it directly without any effort at all. Therefore, the younger generation's cultivation will also be faster. This is a cycle. Therefore, in big clans there are hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Who knows how many experts there are? And because of the environment of big clans, even some of the less capable ones in big clans will naturally adopt the most correct or most suitable method for the clan's interests after being influenced by what they see and hear over the years. It's the same as the choices of some knowledgeable people. This is an innate advantage. Just like how the emperor's son learns the ways of the emperor from a young age and prepares to become the emperor, but the children of other clans only want to become someone else's slave after passing the imperial examinations. Learn martial arts and sell them to the emperor's family. This is a condition, a rule, and even more so a legacy. Such a legacy slowly becomes a custom, slowly becomes a law, slowly becomes ingrained in people's hearts, imperceptibly influencing everyone. This is what is truly terrifying. Lan Buhui and Gu Duxing nodded at the same time. What Mo Chenji said made a lot of sense. Lan Buhui sighed. That's right. The emperor's son learns the ways of the emperor from a young age and prepares to become the emperor, but the children of other clans only want to become someone else's slave after passing the imperial examinations. This sentence is truly a classic. Mo Chenji said, yes, this is identity. Speaking of identity, even the education of an ordinary family and an official's younger brother is different. It may seem equal, but in reality there has long been a bias. Therefore, this is identity, the way of the world, and even more so, the way of the world. Therefore, in this world, so-called fairness is actually just a word, nothing more. Fairness is just a word, nothing more. This is worthy of a toast. Lan Buhui burst into laughter. Since ancient times, when has there ever been true fairness in this world? Mo Chenji said mockingly, therefore if we want to establish ourselves in the upper three heavens, we have to fight our way up through untold hardships. But the big clans can do whatever they want here from the moment they are born? Lan Buhui burst into laughter. Gu Duxing's countenance was grim. After that, Mo Chenji began to analyze the big clans one by one. As he analyzed, Gu Duxing's countenance also became more and more grim. Mo Chenji hadn't truly understood the big clans completely yet. Therefore, all of his analysis and deductions were based on the general direction. He didn't elaborate on the details one by one. But even with such a general direction, it still made Gu Duxing's heart tremble. In fact, he even developed a feeling. The terror of the big clans was definitely above Mo Chenji's analysis. Take the Lan clan for example. On the surface, we have already destroyed the Lan clan's main camp. But in reality, although we have dealt a heavy blow to the Lan clan this time, it's definitely not a setback that they can't recover from. Mo Chenji said in a condescending tone, there must be high-level members of the Lan clan who have survived. Moreover, one of the Lan clan members has gone to the lower three heavens, another to guard the heavenly passageway, another to the northwest, and another to disperse in the martial world. Therefore, the Lan clan has only lost its foundation this time and some of its direct bloodline. It can't affect its survival. It can make a comeback at any time. This is the reason why Elder Lan Buhui insisted on listening to my analysis. It is because he doesn't want to repeat the same mistakes. Similarly, this also gives me a reason to stall for time. Chapter 1353. Hearing Mo Chenji's reason for stalling for time, Lan Buhui smiled and didn't mind. With him here to keep watch, even if you stall for time, what can you do? Just as you said, I can't wait for you to stall for time so that the tribulation can gather and be annihilated in one fell swoop. Mo Chenji continued, therefore there is a high possibility that the Lan clan will make a comeback. But after making a comeback, the Lan clan will abandon the old customs. This lesson is heavy enough, so the Lan clan will also be the most difficult to deal with in the future. Everyone says that tigers are scary, but tigers have nests. As long as one avoids them, nothing will happen. Instead, it is the wolves that have no fixed home that are the scariest, because you will never know where the wolves are. What's more, this wolf pack even has a terrifying leader. Mo Chenji raised his head slightly and looked at Lan Buhui with a slight smile. He said dispassionately, an upper-grade supreme martial artist. Therefore, if you can get out alive, Duxing, if there is a chance, you must first completely annihilate the Lan clan that is about to make a comeback, even if it means giving up the heaven-sent opportunity to deal with the other clans. Because the Lan clan has already been awakened by us, while the other clans are still asleep. But the Lan clan won't remind them. If they do, the Lan clan will be finished. That's right. Lan Buhui smiled and nodded. If they really find out about my plans, they definitely won't mind swallowing up the Lan clan at the same time as they swallow up the Li clan. Mo Qinji smiled and said, but when it comes to a certain point and you have no other choice, you will still say it. Or when that time comes, the 8 super clans will be alarmed because of you. If that's the case, then the battle of the heavens will be far away and there will definitely be no way to settle it in the short term. We can only use pure martial strength to polish, conquer and kill them bit by bit in the long term. Therefore, Mo Tianji smiled. If we survive, we will destroy the Lan clan first. Gu Duxing nodded slowly. I'll remember that. There is a chance. The first will be to kill the Lan clan until nothing is left. Lan Buhui clapped his hands. Good insight. Good scheming. Good planning. Good thinking. For consecutive praises. Every word he said was from the bottom of his heart. The Li clan is no longer a threat. This time, all the major clans have gathered in the northwest to deal with the Li clan. It is indeed suspicious. Logically speaking, the Li clan shouldn't be so rash, but they suddenly exposed such a flaw. But no matter what, the Li clan is doomed this time. Mo Qinji seemed to be deep in thought. He wondered if the current situation of the Li clan could have been planned and pushed forward by Chu Yang. Once the Li clan is destroyed, the other super clans will definitely divide and nibble at the Li clan's resources. This is a godsend opportunity. A tinge of regret appeared in Mo Tianji's eyes. If it were up to me to plan, I can guarantee that the 8 great clans would be in chaos. What a pity, it's the 7 super clans. Lan Buhui corrected. The Lan clan will not participate in the fight for benefits. Mo Tianji said indifferently, even if the Lan clan is already crippled, when the time comes to divide the benefits equally, it's not up to you, the old ancestor, to decide whether to participate or not. He laughed mockingly and said, I have 10,000 ways to make you, an old ancestor who keeps saying that you don't want to participate in this. Taken aback, Lan Buhui mused for a moment before he replied slowly, I do. You do indeed have the ability to do so. Unfortunately, you won't have that chance anymore. A strange smile appeared in Mo Tianji's eyes. Looking at Lan Buhui, he didn't speak for a long while. Lan Buhui asked, What are you looking at? Mo Tianji shook his head and smiled. The expression on his face suddenly relaxed somewhat and he became even more composed and at ease. Elder Lan, in the 100,000 years of history of the heavens, has there ever been a precedent where the Tribulation Sword Master and Tribulation died before unifying the heavens? Lan Buhui's expression turned solemn. Never. Mo Tianji chuckled, his expression indescribably composed and at ease. I haven't heard of it either. Lan Buhui suddenly had a strong urge to turn around and take a look. But he tried his best to suppress this urge of his. This might be Mo Tianji's psychological tactic. He must not fall for it. Mo Tianji smiled. Tribulation's fate is in the hands of the heavens. It is determined by the heavens. It cannot be changed, it cannot be defied. Therefore, tribulation will not die. If there is danger, it will definitely turn misfortune into luck and misfortune into prosperity. Elder Lan, tell me. Isn't that so? Lan Buhui nodded slowly. The white hair on his head seemed to shine even more silver. He said solemnly, Before this, it was indeed so. But there was a prerequisite. And that was that before Tribulation's wings were fully developed, his identity would definitely not be exposed. But your identities have already been exposed. And exposed right in front of me. Secondly, the reason why tribulation is because everyone's strength basically advances at the same time. In other words, if you are a first-grade supreme martial artist, then the highest among you will not exceed third grade. Once this gap is widened, the gap in your hearts will also widen. Therefore, your overall strength now is only SOSO. And with this kind of strength, I can deal with all of you with just one hand. Thirdly, in the past, Tribulation has never faced an upper-grade supreme martial artist under such circumstances. Lan Buhui went on dispassionately, Therefore, you should just continue with the original topic and finish what you want to say. Mo Tianji chuckled. I have absolute faith that Tribulation will not die. Therefore, even though there is no hope, I have been stalling for time. I will drag it on for as long as I can. It has already been 3 hours since you arrived here. Even the sun has risen. Mo Qingji looked at Lan Buhui somewhat mockingly. I can destroy the entire Lan clan in a breath's time. Now that it has been 3 hours, what can happen? Lan Buhui's countenance changed. What do you mean? Mo Qingji said elegantly, nothing much. I just want to tell you that tribulation really is immortal. Lan Buhui's body stiffened somewhat. He had already secretly gathered all of his cultivation. Although he didn't believe it, nor did he sense that there was someone behind him, Mo Qingji's words were too confident, so he had no choice but to take precautions. All was calm. Mo Qingji suddenly smiled at Lan Buhui. Lan Buhui could clearly sense the pity in Mo Qingji's smile. His heart couldn't help but shudder. Mo Qingji suddenly raised his chi and shouted, Tut! Instinctively Lan Buhui flipped over and got up. With a spin, all of his chi protected his body. As if cutting through space, he instantly turned around. As if facing a formidable enemy. Mo Qingji laughed loudly. Ah, so it's a lower-grade supreme martial artist. He's also scared out of his wits. Ah, to be able to see such a scene before my death is truly satisfying. Lan Buhui's face turned purple at once. Where was the person outside the door? It was completely empty. Turning around, he saw that Mo Qingji and Gu Duxing were still standing where they were, the smiles on their faces full of mockery. Lan Buhui took a deep breath and said with a smile, as expected of tribulation's brains. To think that even I was almost fooled. He warned inwardly, don't be fooled again. This little brat is too cunning. To think that he actually dared to use such childish means against a lower-grade supreme martial artist. The most important thing was that the expression on his face was completely lifelike. It was the kind of certainty that came from having reinforcements in his hands. Mo Qingji's countenance was calm, composed, and at ease. His complexion was rosy. With a smile he said, Elder, you don't have to take it to heart. As long as one is human they will react this way. After all, you and I are enemies and not friends. Lan Buhui smiled bitterly. But the next moment he sensed that something wasn't quite right. Mo Qingji's countenance changed. From being composed, and at ease. All of a sudden it changed. It became very strange. Then his entire countenance and person relaxed, becoming like a puddle of mud. It was as though he had let go of all the pressure in his most desperate moment. He heaved a long sigh of relief. Looking at the door he said, You're finally here. I almost couldn't hold on any longer. Lan Buhui's first reaction was to be scared out of his wits. He turned around like a whirlwind. He had already raised all his cultivation just now. When he realized that nothing was wrong, he slowly dissipated it. But the moment he dissipated it, Mo Qingji actually showed such an expression of relief. He immediately raised it again. He used so much force that even he himself felt a jolt. To be able to make Mo Qingji so relaxed even when facing an upper-grade supreme martial artist, what kind of person could it be? The moment he turned around, Mo Qingji and Gu Duxing suddenly attacked fiercely. The two of them struck with 4 palms at the same time. But they didn't attack Lan Buhui but each other. With a soundless tremor, the two of them flew out in opposite directions like lightning. Just now they had become one with their swords. 2 rays of light, one to the east and one to the west. As fast as lightning. However, this happened in the shortest amount of time imaginable. Lan Buhui was still turning toward the south. This was the only opportunity that Mo Tianji had created to escape after he had said so much, and after he had repeatedly probed the other party's defenses. Although Lan Buhui had planned to turn around just now, he was already prepared. Therefore, that couldn't be considered an opportunity at all. In fact, it could even be considered a trap. But after Lan Buhui fell for it, Mo Qingji made him fall for it again in just a few sentences. This was what was truly meant by being caught off guard. It wasn't difficult to make someone fall for it once. But to make him fall for it again when he was at his most vigilant after falling for it was not easy at all. For someone like Lan Buhui, it was definitely not easy to make him fall for it even once, let alone being tricked consecutively. But in the blink of an eye, Mo Qingji had used the same method and the same trick to trick him twice. Mo Qingji had said so much to remind Gu Duxing to be prepared for any eventualities, but the real purpose was this last one. 2 consecutive deceptions. Both of them were done at the very moment when the preparations were laid out to the fullest. To make a low-grade supreme martial artist fall for it twice consecutively in an instant. The only way to survive was to be tricked a second time. Lan Buhui was extremely miserable. Right from the start, he had been carefully guarding himself against being tricked. In the end he still fell for it. And he was tricked by the same method twice consecutively. Throughout the entire process, Mo Chinji only changed his expression, demeanor, and disposition a few times. I went out to buy rice paper. I promised a friend that I would write calligraphy for him. Cough, just to show off my versatility, cover my mouth, and laugh secretly. Whoosh flash. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.